Executed, yes.
Back to channel. Wait!
What are we talking about?
No, what happened? Oh my god. Wait, did I miss some real... No! Wait, what happened?
What the?
Hey bro, hey bro.
Shh, shh, shh. We can hear it, we can hear it, we can hear it.
And put your life force into a sock? Yeah, you deserve to be publicly executed, yes.
Whoa!
What are we talking about?
Uh-oh.
You
Whoa!
What the?
Hey bro, hey bro, hey bro.
You
Okay. As a, believe it or not, as an untrained fighter, I don't have any fighter training. My assumption would be that a punch like this does more damage. Why is it that when people go for these sucker punches, what is this thing? What is that thing? Is it supposed to hurt more? Is that a better thing to do? Why not just like, whoosh? Because I also feel like these always miss too. Like they do this shit and then they'll hit him with like their wrist or some dumb shit, no? You can easily break your hand when hitting the head. Why not punch him in the jaw? He's not paying attention. Look, like imagine if this dude was just like, whoosh, just like, boom, like right there.
You
Fuck, how do I go frame by frame? Where do you actually get him? Oh, you can't go frame by frame. Fuck. Wait. Ooh, he hits him in the nose. Damn. Well, but oh look, it's like a wrist hit. Maybe I can't tell actually. Fuck. I don't know. I need to watch more UFC. Do they do the wide? Do they do the wide things more in the UFC, or do they do like the front and the face? What percentage are you putting on it being staged? I don't think. I don't know if I don't know. FYI, the Justice Department is asking the court to vacate seditious conspiracy convictions for the Proud Boy leaders. Yeah, I don't care that much. I see it. People were linking it, but like, they already pardoned them, right? So, I mean, vacating is just the next. I don't know what the difference is. When you pardon somebody, they don't have to serve in prison anymore, and then vacating is like, oh, actually, wait, I'm sorry. I just realized. Pardoning is like the president says, you're okay, we love you. We're going to just say that, like, you're free from the consequences of your actions. Vacating means that they're trying to get the DOJ to... Can the Justice Department vacate a conviction? Is that a possible... Who vacates sentence? I would imagine that would be like on a judge or like part of a pardon. I don't know. Consolidated appeal involving 4 defendants. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Wait, what? It's a consolidated appeal involving 4 defendants convicted of crimes related to events that occurred at or near the U.S. Capitol on Jan 6. The briefing schedule in this case is currently suspended. The government respectfully requests that, before the defendants are required to file their opening brief, the court vacate their convictions under 28 U.S.C. Section 2(1)(6) and remand so that the government may move to dismiss the indictment with prejudice under federal rule of criminal... Oh, have they not been... Wait, I'm so confused. Did they appeal the case after their convictions, and now as part of the appeal the government wants to vacate, they want to dismiss the Can you dismiss an indictment after a conviction? Is that possible? I don't know what the rules are for let's look it up. Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure, what was it, 48A? I wonder if it'll say anything about this. 48. The government may, with leave of court, dismiss an indictment, information, or complaint. Government may not dismiss the prosecution during trial without the defendant's consent. By the court, okay, that's by the court, by the government. May, with leave of court, dismiss an indictment, information, or complaint. When? At any point in time? After a conviction, you can dismiss an indictment? Not dismiss. Well. Pokey slop.
We could just get it over with, okay?
Uh-oh.
Stop making me laugh. Stop laughing, because when you guys laugh, I laugh. Okay. It's okay. We can just get it out of the way. All right? Of course, before streaming today, I expected a lot of people in the chat asking me to talk about the Sykkuno situation. Oh my gosh, I was thinking about it. I was like, how can I say something that feels honest to me but doesn't get clipped out of context? I was really stressing about it. And then I realized, I'm stressing about it so much. And Sykkuno hasn't even said anything yet. And something about that, didn't really sit right with me. But I do want to reiterate, it's just so sad and disappointing how often this kind of thing seems to happen. Especially when it comes from people that you don't expect it to come from. And I think what I really want to say is I am just so sorry for all the hurt that's been caused to the victims, to our communities. I feel everyone's hurt and shock and confusion, and I'm right there with ya. I really try so hard to make my channel a safe space for everybody, and I really hope the people that do need to speak up will. And hopefully that's enough addressing it. But I do appreciate how kind everyone in the chat has been.
Okay, okay.
So thank you so much for that.
You're actually so much braver than I thought.
Only 'cause you're here.
Oh my god! Jesus Christ! Jesus Christ!
Wait, you're
Okay. I don't get it. Sneako attack on stream. We saw it, guys. Old news. Come on. We've seen this.
Morning, Tonda McCharles, Toronto. Morning, Tonda McCharles, Toronto Star. Pierre Poilievre called you badly educated in economics, and he did.
Wow.
Given, so I'd like to hear a little bit about.
Can I take back my previous answer? No, just kidding. That's a joke.
What was his previous answer? I don't have context. Great
You can
clip.
respond if you wish. My question,
Great.
though, is to
Good
get
clip.
your view of
Good one.
how you assess the risk of recession in Canada and the impact.
Absolutely epic. Thank you. If your crystal meth dealer has all their teeth, they the feds. Damn. Jesus.
Guys, we got to take all 31 million Irish Americans and we got to get them back to Ireland. We're trying to get all 31 million Irish Americans on a large barge and in New York City Harbor, and we're going to take them and we're going to float them all the way across the Atlantic back to Ireland. We left because they figured they didn't know how to do potatoes, but they figured out how to make curly fries and how to make waffle cut fries. We're going back because we're getting our fries back. And they need us, and I need you guys to donate. And I'm taking all the funds that I've been doing. I've been doing Waymo blanket tours on Hollywood Boulevard.
Hey guys, come with us and get a blanket pulled tour of Hollywood Boulevard. Booking the tour is super easy. I just booked it on my Waymo app. The app just tells you where you can meet your blanket puller, and we found him right away. He's a guy who's already got his blanket out.
We're going to be doing the Hollywood Star tour of the Boulevard.
It was pretty slow, and the tour was low-key kind of gross. I think the blanket puller was getting tired because he asked one of us to get off and walk.
Just one of you guys walk.
His vibe was actually low-key a bit aggressive, was actually acting like a bit unprofessional, and he got upset with the other guy, and he seemed to hurt his head pretty badly.
You need to go to the hospital.
Hospital
He
for
was
what?
doing a bunch of unchill stuff. Then he saw the rapper Ludacris star on the Walk of Fame, and he started singing to us, and it made us feel super uncomfortable, so we hit the guy being weird button on the app. Waymo messaged us back right away and let us know that their team was on the way. They actually have a super awesome emergency reputation protection and response team, and some guys came and took him away. I don't know where they went, but I want to thank Waymo for being super accountable in this situation.
This is illegal! Get me out!
The rendition of the Waymo reputation in the facility.
Call to order. Sist O'Donovan has been accused of being a weird guy to females.
This is fucking such bullshit.
Order, prosecution, state your case.
Mr. Sist O'Donovan was found in derelict of his pulling duties during a Waymo pulling tour of Hollywood Boulevard for 2 younger females. Your Honor, I'd like to submit body cam footage as DoorDash character evidence from May 25th, 2025.
Having a good night?
Yeah.
Coming from a party or... Sir, I think you were masturbating while driving your car.
What?
Just hold right there. Hold right there. Yeah, sir, your pants are down.
Because my bottom had become hot. If I'm horny, I don't masturbate. I get a piece of pussy. I go outside, I get a piece of pussy.
Okay. Anything in here that's gonna prick me, poke me?
No.
The stimulation she needed to push me over.
Under arrest.
Can we talk for a second?
No, sir, you've been... Sir.
I'm just a humble guy. I'm normal. I'm not a fucking weirdo.
Order, I hereby remove custody of your pit bull and transfer it to your roommate effective immediately.
Oh my God! This is fucking bullshit!
Sist O'Donovan has been found guilty. It took a Waymo jury less than 3 seconds to convict him. He has now been ordered to wear a public masturbation detection ankle
You
bracelet.
shouldn't be accused of being jerking off all the day long because your ass gets hot while you're doing fucking Uber Eats.
He will be getting docked access to levels on mobile games like Squirting Queen and Angry Sun.
Why are you guys in my house? That's my dog. This is my dog.
That's not your dog.
An American man gave customers a low-quality blanket ride. He was on trial by Waymo, where it was shown the man masturbated in his car. The world turns against the man, and the judge awarded custody of his pit bull to his roommate.
You gonna jerk off in your car again, man? Is that what you gotta jerk off? No! Hey!
On this Southwest flight, one passenger had a total meltdown.
I was not masturbating. I was tugging on my penis to get all the urine out so I didn't disturb the seating people. You're discriminating against me! I'll see you guys in Fort Lauderdale. Bye! Hi, everybody in first class, you fucking cowards! President Barack Obama, please help me. You went on podcast. Maybe you can come on my life cast and help me move out of my house.
Hearing about this bloke, Sist O'Donovan. Guys, we have to forgive him. He has done nothing wrong.
We don't even know. We didn't even prove he was masturbating. they can take your dog, then they can do basically anything to you that they want.
I looked into it after the when you're having a thing at a court. What's it called?
A court event.
Yeah, court event. I looked into the court event and I said, who's owning this court? And it was owned by Waymo.
You got to ask yourself, who owns Waymo?
I looked into that, and who owns Waymo? The royal family, who is against Irish Zionism. And what else does the royal family own?
Podcast. Ice creams.
Yes, but they also own Pornhub. And what's the most important thing for people to be doing on Pornhub?
Jerking off.
That's right. So when you're jerking off, what can't you do?
Drive.
You can't drive, but
Holy
you also
shit.
can't hold a gun.
What do we do, though?
This is what we do. Why is it so exciting to be seeing a female nipple? It's because it's covered up all the time, right? Hey guys, I'm a Free the Nipple activist now. Far too long we've been covering up the nipple, and it's been driving guys crazy, tit crazy, where they gotta go home and they gotta jack off, they gotta jerk their pricks off because they gotta imagine what that tit's
Mass Free the Nipple protests have erupted at campuses all across the country this week.
The bill is passed.
Where did 90% of all violent crimes happen? Okay, that's interesting because it happens in nipple-covered areas.
Going to Saudi Arabia to do a conversation to meet with the king, King Drake, the guy that is the leader of Saudi Arabia. I'm getting into a room with him. We're gonna spit some bars about Free the Nipple. Guys, I love you! I love you all!
Free the Nipple Flight 87 has been hijacked. Nipple fundamentalists have control of the aircraft.
Nipple fundamentalists have crashed a passenger plane into the Victoria's Secret headquarters in Reynoldsburg, Ohio. On board was activist and nipple influencer Sist O'Donovan.
Saudi Arabia has struck Free the Nipple fundamentalist settlements in Israel and Iraq.
China has attacked Free the Nipple hostels based in Taiwan with multiple drone swarms.
Russia and Poland, in collaboration, have invaded Germany, targeting nipple pulsar sucking facilities all across the industrial Rhine area.
Automated systems across the United States have launched Waymo-powered nuclear weapons.
It's when progressives calling liberals libtards, socialists do.
Targeting Huawei stores in South Tennessee.
Talk to Abraham, 15 tier on Under Armour. Old Man Greenwood, Beverly, Scout 2, Shield 2, Descenture. En is Valiantualia, een instant fui, Jabadoir, Tarjay. Ik ben heel kwijt, ook als een goeie en Guerri, Stress, Art.
Okay, based. Okay. Based. Okay. Can I get one of those videos but like 20 minutes long now?
So.
No, not that.
Mr. Polyev,
This was a question asked before.
would you quit today?
I don't. That's an unfair question. I don't. I can't look into the heart of Mr. Polyev. I respect him as a parliamentarian, as I do the other leaders of the other parties, and we'll continue. You know, I'll continue to work with him and all parliamentarians, as will my colleagues, to advance the interests of Canadians.
If you were Mr. Polyev, would you...
Okay, and then gotcha. Epic.
The one that created that Jesus meme that Trump just posted, that's AI God.
Joe, I told you, he explained it. He was a doctor.
That's what they call them. That's what AI God calls Jesus. Jesus is a doctor.
The mental gymnastics involved in some of these people who are so ideologically captured is shocking to me.
It's weird.
Wow. The one That's crazy, bro. True. That's crazy, bro.
Part, right?
Uh-oh.
That promoted democracy. I'm just curious your take on what should Americans take away from the fact that Donald Trump and
Whoa, who's that?
Hello. All right, let's give these plebeians what they want and pretend to fight. Oh, wait, did you say you're on stream?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I mean...
It's okay, we can break the fourth wall. It's fine, it's fine. Don't worry.
Give me a second, I'm setting up. Why can't I pop this out? Oh, there we go.
Oh, do you want my camera on your side as well?
It would make it better looking if you could.
Yeah, let's do
You don't have to.
Why does that chicken have 24 HP? What the fuck?
Calling me good looking, eh? Wow.
Okay, I will. Good looking.
Unsolicited advances. It's crazy. Hang on, where's the pop out? Okay. I always take a minute to... Oh, because my fucking Discord. Okay, I know why. Don't worry.
Yeah. I gotta like turn it off in OBS.
Yeah,
And give me a right back.
Will you let the guy in Discord tier 3 room who was there for like 30 minutes? What? Tomorrow, okay?
So it should work now. What the fuck? Shit. What the fuck? All right, let's turn it off and then on again. The ultimate. Okay, there we go.
Thank you, by the way, for meeting me on what? What are you in the UK?
Why are they all fighting this chicken? I'm so confused. Is he supposed to be my ally?
Let me start my stream. I think that's good. That's good. That is in frame. Make this full screen. Oh man, I look awful. So tired. All right, go live.
What's the story?
Do it live. Oh,
what's the story behind the hat?
I just started wearing it at like a rally in Washington D.C. and it stuck, and I'm just like, whatever. I'm just gonna keep doing this. I guess I don't know. It's just like a gimmick now that I do. There's no good reason to have it, but
it works though. I think people need more gimmicks. You know, like I'm a big wrestling fan. You know, from like the '90s and shit.
Exactly.
So,
and I literally I'm the heel too. I'm Mr. Beat, right? Like now every time we meet up in real life, we'll have like a dumb little like wrestling moment. Oh, hold on, I gotta go live. Whoop. Okay. All right, you Zionist pig. Let's get this started. No. So basically, hi. Nice to talk to you again. We've done some debates. I got a lot of flack for my Israel comments. I am self-admittedly uneducated on the topic. I've read a couple books. I've done basic, not much research into it, and curious to see, as the well-read person, what you can tell me, whether or not you can change my opinions on some things, or if we can just talk about stuff. So basically, I figured I'd just like Joe Rogan you and just be like, "What's going on? Like, what is this? What are they doing?" And yeah.
Well, you said you'd read some books. Like which ones? More than one?
I've read like 2 or 3, but the one I can remember is the 100 Years War in Palestine. I read that like a year or 2 ago, but it's been a while since I read that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I was gonna say, if you've read one book on the topic, you
already had
90% of people who were talking about it. So that's cool.
But like my takeaway from that book was like nothing about my priors or my like overall knowledge of it has changed. Like I have more background and I understand like oh this is the year this happened and oh that was worse than I thought it was. But like basically like just to sum up my position on it, growing up I always knew there was a conflict. I always knew it was because they there's established Israel in the 40s. This is a bunch of conflicts are happening over the land and who deserves it and who's killing who. And I thought it was just always a big clusterfuck. Like that's always just kind of how I viewed it. It's not a something I had like a strong moral position on, but just like, wow, like that's a fucked up thing in the Middle East that's happening. And since then, obviously it's blown up post October 7th. And now I'm like, okay, it seems to me that Israel's actions in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip are like over the line of what I would consider justified and like, oh, self-defense, self-determination or whatever they're doing. And something should be done, but I don't know the prescription of what needs to be done. But that's like the rough, very layman understanding that I have of the whole situation.
Okay. So there are probably going to be things I'm going to want to ask you throughout, but like I guess you said you wanted to start by asking me some questions. So
I've got like a whole bunch of questions, and I don't know, like I don't know, like if you want to restructure this, feel free. But basically, like one of the big things for me is people like to use this topic or this point that there is a contingency of people in Palestine or just in the Middle East in general that like hate Israel, that hate Jewish people, and if you were to like integrate a large portion of this population, this would cause the destruction through like mass overthrow of the democracy, aka a majority of the voters would be anti-Jewish people in general, and therefore there's no way to perpetually have Israel as its own state, as a Jewish state, without ethnically cleansing people or like racial quotas.
Wait, Joe Rogan bait clip. Hold on.
There's a shitload of ignored cases of what they're calling turbo cancer.
No one. Turbo cancer is a myth, meme, rumor, stupid fucking thing. Because the COVID people that all predicted that the vaccine would cause all of these fucking problems, all of them were wrong. So now they've had to invent diseases that they think are being caused by the vaccines. And one of these invented diseases is called turbo cancer. I'm not joking. It's been a thing they've been talking about for a long time, the turbo cancer. Ugh.
That people have gotten after the mRNA vaccine. Like it's barely a conspiracy theory. It's more likely an ignored.
Why does he sound like he's dying? Please.
Inconvenient fact. Don't die. That these pharmaceutical drug companies are trying to ignore.
Wow.
There's a shitload of ignored.
Good one.
And my question for you is like, is this true? If it is true, does that justify the racial quotas? And is there a solution to that?
Okay, so the first one you made was that like there's the belief that that Palestinians there's too many of them are too predisposed against Jews and Israelis that if they became like a sizable voting bloc, they would just fuck the Jewish population basically. Is that the first thing you said? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
I'm open to the idea that there's just like a large contingent of people in the Middle East that are like I hate Israel and I hate Jewish people. Like this is just very clear to me based on like the polls that I've seen. Whether or not that's like a anti-Semitic thing or just like hey this country has been blowing up my family or my ancestors for decades, like it kind of relevant to me. Like clearly there is an animosity there. Yeah. So like if you were to show me things, it's like if the Hamas charter is like, oh, we want to eradicate Israel, it's like, yeah, like that checks out. I believe that to be the case. I think I've since changed it since then. But like even if there's two parts of this. It's like even if this were true, I don't know if that necessarily justifies the ethnic cleansing stuff or the racial quota stuff. But yeah, I guess tackle it in two parts. I mean, is it true? And if it is true, then what?
Okay. Well, I guess. So to this day, I think the most popular movement in Palestine is still Hamas. Like between West Bank and Gaza, Hamas still would blow out any election if they. I think if Barghouti came out of jail, the guy who's from the opposition group to Fatah to Hamas would probably win a presidential. But as far as parties go, Hamas is still the most popular. So yeah.
While that might be true, I think Hamas is like kind of the only party in. Hamas is like the only party in the Gaza Strip. The PLO is a coalition of tons of different parties, right? So like broadly speaking, I think it's kind of like, I don't know if it's a fair comparison. I don't know who has more support broadly speaking, like the entirety of like the PLO versus just Hamas. I don't know the answer to that 100%.
Yeah, like I think it probably is quite.
They have majority support. Just on that note, like, if I remember correctly, they're not actually that popular like, within the Palestinian.
So in the West Bank, they are by far the most popular party over Fatah. Yeah. In Gaza, they're actually a bit less popular than they are in the West Bank, ironically. Yeah. But
yeah, I'm saying like 40 to 50% support or something like
that. Yeah, because like what you'll see is even if you see like 40, 50, then you'll see Fatah getting something like between like 15, 20, 30, and then it's like there's a bigger chunk that's just like undecided or
sure.
Yeah.
Or it's like some people view this as the best option, but a majority don't support any group. I think in the West Bank or Gaza.
I think in the West Bank, Hamas are definitely the most popular. I don't know if it's plurality or majority. That does fluctuate a lot.
I'm saying like 40, similar like 40, 50ish, like somewhere between that and the different things I just googled. Again, this is all like layman. I'm just googling random stuff.
Yeah. But in any case, I think what's again like with polling, I think the better thing to look at for that particular question, because that's about the question of like should they all integrate into one country. The better response to that one I think is Palestinians don't want it. If you look at polling, there's usually three options that are given by PSR, like probably the most reliable pollsters in that region, and they'll ask them, do you want like one state with equality, one state without equality, or two states? And the one state with equality for both groups is always bottom. For both Israelis and Palestinians, neither of them want it. Like I think the highest I ever saw for like a democratic one-state solution when it's side by side with an undemocratic one, I think is maybe like 15-20%. But yeah, like this whole binational one-state solution that people talk about with equal rights for Arabs and Jews, like the only people who talk about that with any sense of like realism or optimism are like Westerners. Like in the region, there's no popular leader who's backing this on either side. There's no party that's backing it. There's no broad movement. Like it doesn't have any sway in that region. It's like they're either all or nothing or two states. Yeah, that's kind of how that goes.
Okay. And then what's like the primary opposition then to this two states? Because that does kind of throw away the like whole voting scare part, right?
The opposition to two states now, I guess, comes from that's a bit more complicated. So with Palestinians, and pollsters don't ask this for some reason. I think they should. Is that you said that earlier that Hamas updated their charter, right? They never so they never actually updated their charter. They published a new document with a different name, and one leader said that we're more like anti-Zion.
Can I promote a YouTube vid? 10-minute ad read. You got the YouTube logo, bro. Go for it.
And it's an anti-Jew now, right? Like that was basically, but like the language in it shifts a lot more away from the religious anti-Semitic thing to the more anti-Zionist narrative. But the charter never actually formally replaced the old one. The old one is still there. Like there's never been any like Hamas vote or anything like that, or any like Hamas leadership official decision to remove the old charter. And that's done for a good reason, because in Arabic, like the more hardline Hamas leaders, when that happened, had to reassure their supporters that the charter had not changed, that it hadn't actually been removed. So that was like, to me, that was more of a PR statement. But even if you take it on face value, even if you believe the new charter doesn't say two-state solution. It says 67 borders, which is different. It says two states, but we don't recognize Israel, and we don't have to give Israel anything. As in, like, they're just saying Israel should unilaterally give us our state, but we don't give up our aspiration for all of the rest of it. So Hamas's position since 2017, and a little bit before that, was to say, we are going to say that we expect, they don't actually expect it, but we're going to say that we want Israel to just give us our state, for them all to leave the West Bank and Gaza, and we will just use that new state to try and get the rest back later. But I don't think I ever see enough Palestinians getting asked a question of like, do you want two states for now, or do you want a two-state solution? As in, like, do you want two states and then the conflict is over? That's the bit I've never really had a good answer to about what they actually want with regards to that question. Israelis obviously don't want two states because they believe that they used to in the 90s and 2000s, but now they basically believe that any bit of land they ever concede to places where there are terrorist organizations, anytime they give up that land, then that land comes back to bomb them with rockets and cross-border attacks, right? So they'll say, well, we left Lebanon in 2000, we went all the way past wherever the UN wanted us to, and then Hezbollah just used that territory to stockpile 200,000 rockets and to cross-border operations and things like that. We left Gaza in 2005, and then Hamas got elected like a year later. So that's kind of their narrative, and then obviously they believe that if they give the West Bank up as two states, then they think that that's going to be a territory that's 16 times the size of Gaza, where Hamas are the most popular party, and if they just give that up without any assurance on the other side, then that land will also get used as a springboard for like an October 7th style attack like Gaza was. So that's kind of why both groups reject it. But as far as changing that, like I think two states is the only way. Like there's no other way you can solve that conflict without Palestinians having their own sovereignty in their area and Israelis having theirs. They cannot live together, not for 100 years at least. If they want to, they can, but they don't want to. And they can't live in what's happening now, where you have settlers constantly harassing and humiliating Palestinians in the West Bank, with Gaza being used as a military base by Hamas, and then Israel coming and responding in the most insane, like disproportionate way possible, and thinking that the only way to deal with Hamas and their tunnels is to bomb the entire thing to oblivion. Like you can't have, it's unsustainable. Like you need to have them. There needs to be a two-state solution for both groups. I'd even argue that the settlement expansion is actually suicidal on Israel's part as well, because if they keep expanding into the West Bank, then you're kind of just asking for a situation where settlers become so embedded and so unmovable that Palestinians aren't going anywhere. They're still going to be there. And now Israel's in a position where settlers are living there for 1, 2, 3 generations. They're eventually going to get incorporated into Israel. They're going to get annexed. But then if you're annexing territory that also has Palestinians there, you have a choice. You're going to have to either give them voting rights and make them citizens, or you have them as citizens without voting rights, which means you actually become a de jure apartheid state, which will destroy Israel like on the world stage completely. So yeah, there needs to be two states. And I think the problem with when it comes to international pressure is that there are reasons that both groups actually need to be pushed into this position. I think with Palestinians, there's just been way too much of a tendency of rejectionism, too much of a unwillingness to commit to a final decision on two states like they did in the 2000s. There's too much of a belief that Israel is a temporary thing, like a temporary blotch on the Middle East that will one day go away. And with Israelis, there's this idea that they believe the Palestinian statehood question is just an inconvenience that can be pushed on the back burner forever. That would be my summary of like how the conflict needs to end. I've never heard any better proposal.
True.
Okay. And so, but it sounds to me like,
but boring.
Even though you clearly say this is what needs to happen in order to give both of these people self-determination, neither party is going to push seriously for this. Like one party, Israel says, if we do this, we'll get bombed more. And the Gazans and the West Bankers are like, well, this is an abdication of what is rightfully ours, and this won't happen. This is like still confining us. This is still unfair. So like, is this even remotely possible, or is it just going to kind of exist in the way it already does now perpetually? If like, because this goes back to like the view I had when I was like 12 and first learned about this. And it's like, when are these people ever going to agree on something? And it seems like never.
Dylan.
Okay,
Fuck
so
that guy.
yeah, if what you're saying is what's more likely, obviously what's more likely is the status quo just continues until Palestine as a state is physically impossible. Like that's unfortunately the most likely scenario. But yeah, what I'm saying might be quote unquote impossible. It's more possible than anything else. It's the only thing that the two groups have ever come close to. They came close to two states once. Like it was a few decisions away, either at Camp David or at Taba, that could have possibly done it. And the Israelis wanted it. They voted for it. The Palestinians voted for it at that point. I think it has to happen one way or the other. And as far as Western, like it depends on which government is doing what though, right? Like the Western governments, I think, have been too soft on Netanyahu in his positioning. Obviously, Donald Trump is a green light. Biden, I think, on his way out after October 7th was starting to make moves that were more aggressive towards Netanyahu. He was starting to sanction settlers, which had never been done before. He was withholding arms shipments in the middle of a war, which America hadn't done for a good while. There was more opportunity, I think, to had a Democrat state. I think you might start to see withholding of economic aid and economic projects that might, like, quite similar to what Bush Sr. did in the 90s. But again, like, yeah, it doesn't seem that likely, but it's literally the only way. There's no other way around it. Like, it's either
when you
that
say it's
or,
not that likely, it's like no one in power seems to be taking these proposals seriously. No American government has.
Are you gonna watch Project Hail Mary? Yes, I'm gonna end my stream right now and go watch it. No, maybe at some point. I don't know. I don't have any opinions on it.
In my view, gotten close to pushing for this. So not just like it's unlikely. It seems like this is just never going to happen. Like it almost seems inevitable that one of these groups is just going to like wipe out the other one until there is no other side of an argument and they get their way, right? Like unless some, like what would need to happen for that push for a two-state to like to go forward? Like is there even anything remotely close?
Yeah, I think so. I think two things need to happen. There have been things close in the past. I would say with Clinton and the Clinton parameters, and even with Olmert, things. Yeah, I think they've been close, and they voted for it as well. The Israelis voted for someone who ran, like Ehud Barak, who ran on two states for Israel and Palestine, on like finishing the conflict. Palestinians voted for Arafat, who had signed the Oslo Accords, which was leading towards two states. So we know that they've wanted this in the past. I think two things need to change broadly. Israel on that side needs to change in the sense that, well, obviously the country needs to change internally. Like they can't keep following this Netanyahu like status quo settlement expansion idea that they can just forget that Palestinians are people with aspirations for statehood and everything like forever. Western powers can change in the sense that I think they should remain allies with Israel, but as allies they should be willing to draw lines and to say, like for example, the Abraham Accords and how peace with the Arab nations came at the cost of completely ignoring the Palestinian issue. I think European powers should be able to keep their positions, their allyship with Israel, but whilst also being very clear that there needs to be some appetite for like progressing towards a solution, if not even like stopping settlements. And there should be repercussions for not doing that. There should be things like if you're going to pass this law which expands the Israeli civil judiciary into the West Bank,
pure genocide apologia
it's like,
out of
okay, well,
LonerBox.
then you're going to lose like $1 billion off of your budget. Then fuck you. Like that needs to happen much more clearly and much more like.
Let me catch up. First.
You do this, you lose that. You don't do this, you keep that. That needs to be very clear. On the Palestinian side,
this kind of leads into more of the questions I had. I mean, like, so, like, what are your strongest criticisms? Is like of Israel, maybe as a state, of the current government, and it seems like you already kind of have these like prescriptions
them
to be done.
evil!
Yeah, like what are the worst
Call
things that
them
they're
evil!
doing and why they are preventing some sort of solution from being
God damn it.
Mainly in the sense that like Israeli right wingers are so good at exploiting fear and like dread. Like so every time that rockets go over, every time there's a terrorist attack, or every time people are just made aware that Hezbollah exists across the border, or that like Hamas is across the border, they will. And every time a Western power goes against them, they will exploit that. They will tell their people that yes, look, we are Jews, we're still Jews. Everyone hates us. So like that's never going to change. We're never going to find sanctuary anywhere else in the world. The only way to survive in this neighborhood is to be as strong and aggressive as possible. We need to let people know that if they fire one shot at us, we'll fire 8,000 at them. Like that's basically their position. It's based on a principle called the Iron Wall from like the 20s. That's the idea that if they just assert themselves with dominance, then eventually people will get fed up of fighting them and accept their existence and realize that fighting them is not worth it. That worked with countries. It worked with Egypt. It worked with Jordan. It might be working with Lebanon right now. They've had talks for the first time in 30 years, but it's not going to work with Palestine because they don't have a country. Like they have nothing to lose really in that regard.
So I was going to say that the distinguishing factor is like they don't exist with like a day-to-day life of freedom and self-determination that like Lebanon or Egypt does, right? So like while they can say, all right, maybe we're upset with this country and their actions here, like there is some tacit peace between them if we just kind of leave them alone, whereas the other one is occupied or they can't leave, or there's some other circumstances that say like, yeah, like what do I have to lose by continuing this fight, right?
Yeah, so they're in a position where with Israelis, well, like, I would say that Israel's actually in a similar position to America to a very different degree, but like they are being taken over by like far right people who don't really care that much for like a lot of these like liberal democratic principles that the country was like on paper was built on. Like even the IDF and all their practices in Gaza, like believe it or not, like the IDF still has like a code of conduct. They still have lawyers and they still have like people who will train their soldiers and their officers and they'll teach each other about
feeling
like,
the apology, guys.
like where Israelis commit war crimes, like in the 40th war, and they'll say like this is why you should always disobey an illegal order. This is what an illegal order is. This is why we don't do that. Like they teach these things, but then they appoint a bunch of like division commanders and people who are in charge of hundreds or thousands of soldiers, and they'll just appoint people who ignore them, right? They'll appoint people who ignore these rules, and the government won't prosecute anyone with these rules. So you get this issue where they are just kind of like abandoning so many of their like principles that they claim make them like the more democratic Western like country in the Middle East, and it's all built on this idea that they think like the Palestinian problem can just be pushed on the back burner forever. So I think the left needs to like internally they need to the left needs to win that argument. They need to win the argument that you have two choices: either you're going to annex this territory, Gaza and the West Bank, in which case you have 5 million people added to your population who you apparently don't want, and you become actually just an apartheid state by your own rules, by your own stated rules, or you separate and you have two states. And they need to understand that like this is like the only dichotomy that they're ever going to have to deal with.
You just got out after only.
This is the only like choice that they're ever going to have. It's status quo can only last until like one or the other becomes inevitable. Like either they annex all of it and then have to become an actual apartheid state, top to bottom, or they have to separate.
You say actual apartheid, like people accuse it of being one. Do you think it like doesn't qualify as one? And why not?
I mean, right now it's a military occupation of like the West Bank and I guess now like Gaza. That's what it is. Like a military occupation. You don't expect military occupations to have like equal rules for everyone. You could say the practices are very apartheid-like they look very apartheid and they feel like apartheid. But an apartheid state would be like there's a reason that Israel proper has very different rules for Palestinians than the West Bank does, right? Palestinians who live in Israel can vote, they can get education, they have affirmative action programs, they have the government sometimes give them extra money for some things. The West Bank is not Israel proper though. It's not annexed by Israel. Actually, most Israelis don't want to annex the whole West Bank. They want to annex bits of it maybe, but like so. When I say actual apartheid, I mean if Israel actually starts to say we're making all of this our country, well then now you're saying it's not an occupation anymore. Now this is Israel. Like Ramallah is Israel, Nablus is Israel, but the people in here.
So it seems like a distinction without a difference, right? I mean, like, obviously, yes, under military occupation you're gonna have different rules, but like if the people within are living as if it was an apartheid state, regardless of why that rule is being implemented because of military or because it's a country that says this is just the rules basically when there's no war going on, either way they're feeling consequences of that. So like does that distinction really matter, or like there's like a moral weight, and we're gonna get into like the definitions and like behind the moralism behind definitions. Like why does that matter? That it's the occupation and not an actual apartheid state or whatever, right?
I think it matters because Israel always tries to deny being an apartheid state, but if they annex the West Bank, like you said, I mean, yeah, for Palestinians not much would change. They'd still be under the same rules and they still have the same apartheid experience they've got right now. But Israel as a country can no longer say we're not an apartheid state. Like because people who defend Israel like right now or even out there, I don't think Israel's an apartheid state. I think what they're doing in the West Bank is akin to apartheid. But if they actually go ahead and annex it and say even according to our own rules this is ours, then well now you're just becoming the thing that you kept claiming you're not. Like so they're doing it de facto.
Right, like,
what I mean. I'm saying
like the consequences for the, like you said, for the civilians are pretty much no different, but it gives the Israeli government like a cover. Like, well, technically, we're not. This isn't our state, but like, is that just for what negotiating tactics, or to just kind of like leverage that if someone says, hey, you're doing a human rights abuse here? It's like, well, it's not. Our country. We're not doing this as a prescription of our laws. We're doing it based on occupation and ongoing wars. Like, what is the reason for that distinction? If ultimately it matters not at all to the civilians whether or not it is technically apartheid or not.
Well, because it matters to Israel. Because obviously, if Israel annexes the West Bank, they have to bring in their entire. Because right now there's like there's a different administration. Like there's a different institution that is that takes care of civil administration of the West Bank. Like it's divided into like the PA controls some areas, and then there's joint control in Area B, and then there's Israeli in Area C. If all that goes away, then on one side, like the reason Israel, you ask me why Israel doesn't just annex all of the West Bank.
No, well, I'm not asking that. I'm just asking like why. If you were to push back and say, well, technically it's not an apartheid state because blah, 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 occupation here, it's not part of Israel. Sure, I understand the distinction. My question is like, why uphold this distinction when it seems to like the ultimate worth of that term is that people see that other people are being treated differently because of who they are, right? And people want that to stop. Is it the Israeli government upholding that distinction to say, well, because we don't want to, like, if we were to go in and annex it, then we would have to classify it that way. Sure, I understand why they don't want to, but why does that definition even matter in this case?
It doesn't actually matter that much to me. Like I'll call what happens in the West Bank apartheid. Like
well, it matters because there's a difference between de jure and de facto of a thing, right? Like there's a difference between this guy's basically, the leader versus this guy's like the elected leader. Or there's a difference between like everybody, like the police force might be racist versus there's a law saying the police force needs to be racially discriminating, right? There is a distinction there. It can feel a little bit minor, but it is important.
Like, I don't give a fuck, but like why I would say that Israel's not an apartheid state now is because like I want to be able to call it something different when it does something different, which is annexes the West Bank. Like if they actually go ahead and say themselves, yes, we are going to make all of this Israel, but not everyone who lives in Israel and is born in Israel will be an Israeli citizen and have Israeli voting rights. Yeah, I want to call that something a little bit different to what they're doing now. Also,
de jure, not de jure. I said de jure, and some guy posted on the subreddit, emailed me, and got mad. I don't know. It's actually not. I always said de jure, okay? The other guy doesn't like it.
The reason I guess I don't commit to like it's all in
the one guy, the emailer.
Now, I guess, is because whenever I hear people using that term, I feel like they're using it to try and push the apartheid solution to Israel, which is like the South Africa solution, which is it should just become one state with equal rights for everyone. But then you get to the problem we came to earlier, which is that well, no one in there wants that. So I just think it like, but again, to me that's like the semantic part to me like it's not really important to me. I just don't really care that much about it. I'd rather just talk about like the things that are going on.
Right. It depends on like why people are calling it that, and this will kind of lead into the next question. But yeah, it's like if it is definitely an apartheid state, then you're saying this because you necessitate a one state solution, or you think hey, equal rights for everyone, and this might not be the best solution given whatever party wants in that area. So I understand that. But then I guess moving on. I mean like so the whole conversation of like is it a genocide or not? Like some people say well technically based on X definition it doesn't meet this therefore. Whereas I look at it and I say okay I see people being cleansed from their homes. I see the intention of the government to push out populations, and whether or not you call that.
I hate this term cleansed. God, it is such a loaded term, and everybody is feeling like genocidal when it comes up. It's like, man, I don't know, whatever.
The same thing as the G word doesn't matter as much as this is what is ultimately happening to these people, and I think something needs to be done about it, or like the government needs to be held accountable. How do you view that distinction? Like, is it a genocide? Is it not a genocide? What necessitates that? Like, if it's not, why? There's a million questions. Like, why is that in conflict with these organizations? Like, so maybe get into that a little bit.
Okay, so broadly speaking, genocide is a legal term that has been practiced very little in international law. There's not that much legal precedent. There's a very specific definition. I honestly, like, I personally try to get as far away as possible from like going into this because I think these categories are supposed to be there for people who already know and already agree on the facts. They're just talking about like how should it. They're talking about like umbrella terms. So if I want to talk about Stalin putting all of the Crimean Tatars on trains and sending them off to Uzbekistan or whatever, well, we'll just say well the ethnic cleansing in Crimea, and then most historians will know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't need to talk about the details. When people say the genocide in Gaza, I don't know if they're talking about like what they've read in the ICJ. I don't know if they're talking about some meme that they saw on fucking Twitter that says the death toll is actually 600,000. I don't know what factual basis they're drawing that on. And to me, it just like it doesn't actually help the conversation that much at all. I think it's kind of like a fruitless debate to go into like the legal aspect of like the genocide convention. I mean, I'll do it for its own sake, I guess, but like, I mean, let's say I think most people understand this though. Like to me, the way I see the word genocide being used in Gaza is I see it being used as a shortcut to maybe not everyone not agreeing on all the facts. I think I see it as people like using it as a thought terminating cliche. I think I see people using it to purity test. Like I just don't think it serves that much value the way it's being used. And I think you shouldn't need to get a concession on like a particular legal term. You shouldn't need to get a concession on a particular legal term to like have a discussion to see where someone stands on an issue, right? And everyone knows this, right? If you were grilling someone who's you suspected of being an anti-Semite or a neo-Nazi, you would maybe.
Oh, we're caught up.
Ask them about the Holocaust, and you might say, well, how many Jews died in the Holocaust? You wouldn't say, did the Nazis commit a genocide? That's usually not your instinct, as far as I know.
Right, like whether or not you would call the Holocaust a genocide is irrelevant to how I view it morally, what should be done, how the people who committed it should be seen, and
and
like
you might even be giving the Nazi an out, right? Because he might say, yeah, of course the Nazis committed genocide, but in his head he's like,
everybody
only killed 200,000
genocided
people,
or whatever,
like the Red Cross meme or whatever, right?
Or the intent was there, but they didn't do anything.
Or they might be actually referring to the Slavs, but not the Jews. Like the Jews, it was all self-defense or some bullshit. Yeah, like that's what they would. Yeah. So I think it's better to just go into the facts of what's happening.
Okay, so then I mean, I agree with the like semantic argument.
Okay, if
but
I
then,
have low
if
luck,
we're going into the facts. Why do
Wait, I have low luck, and this guy's got the quest item on. I shouldn't try to loot this corpse, right? Because there's a chance that my cat will just fucking die. I shouldn't do it, right?
So many international communities call it this based on their definition. Why do so many people oppose said definition? And like how do the prescriptions change based on whether or not they are right to call it that?
To me, most of it comes down to just factual disagreements and the way data is collected in the middle of a war where information deficits are quite big. I mean, if you're going to go into like specific UN reports or different logging, but like I think with a lot of what's happened in the war, although again, I'll say a million times that I think like systematic war crimes is at least what Israel's done in Gaza. Like not just seasoned bad apples, but actually like the government's allowed bad apples to happen from the top down.
Jesus. I see you love defending people who support genocide. I posted a link with the videos, and I believe you're capable to use any basic search engine. It's both you and your best friend Destiny doing propaganda for the state of Israel. God damn.
And not cared about it or even welcomed it. But making the genocide argument, like a lot of the factual basis that a lot of these reports are sort of like backing themselves up with, to me, I just think some of it has fallen short. So like I can go into some details. Like I think with the way that the aid situation was described and the famine situation.
This is utterly disturbing. The immediate issue is not cartography. It's whether millions of people are allowed to live with rights, safety, and dignity.
Was reported by...
Check it. 1 year ago, LonerBox was defending genocide openly.
UN organizations or by the IPC. I think they were just quite flawed and they didn't seem to hold up to the same standards that they have for other conflicts. I think the way that
Substance, my number one hater, who tweets constantly about me. Nice.
That certain statements were interpreted by Israeli politicians didn't really add up, and I think disputes about death tolls and like who actually makes up the death toll. Like to this day, I don't think we have any consensus on how many of those 70,000 were Hamas fighters. No one said, right? I think the IDF said they believe it's like 20, 25,000 or 30,000, which would mean like just a bit under 30, 40%, which would be like there are lots of urban wars where
yes,
that's
sir.
happened.
No. Yes,
but
sir.
Hamas
No,
hasn't said
guys.
how
Yes or
many
no?
militants they've lost, and the human rights organizations haven't even, as far as I know, they haven't even commented much on that
Right,
part.
it's hard to also
so,
just get an accurate number because it's not like everyone is wearing a uniform. You've got essentially an entire area of square footage of rubble that is like, all right, like how are you even able to collect data from this? There's no, you can just kind of look at like who used to live here and who's not alive anymore, and then try from there. I guess. It's not exactly a hard science. So I understand.
And especially given the fact that like I don't know if you know this, but like Hamas in the past conflicts in 2014, for example, they literally issued out public statements telling their members not to report dead militants. Like, don't say anything if a soldier has died. If anyone asks, like a human rights org or whatever calls you and asks you if someone died in this house, you always put them as an innocent citizen, an innocent civilian, unconditionally. So they have an incentive to hide their dead, obviously, because they reap all of the rewards.
The IDF
in the
has
propaganda
an
war,
incentive
right?
to downplay civilian casualties, of course, right? Like,
yeah, of course they do. Yeah. So and they also have an incentive. I mean, they also have a very a broader understanding of what's a soldier than I think most NATO countries do. But so that's. Yeah, that's
it
one
makes,
of
it makes it more ambiguous, more messy.
But
then, like, what are the facts that the international communities that have formed these opinions based on? And are they faulty bases, or they're based on more ambiguity, or do they use a different definition of like a genocide, or
Amnesty did have a bit in their report where they are contesting like understood definitions of genocide. I think there was also some scandal with them more recently where they withheld their October 7th report on Hamas's attacks because of its political implications, which I think is a very strange thing for a human rights org to be doing. But I'll give you one example because like the war claims specifically goes.
Before it was a genocide, it was an apartheid. To be clear, being one step removed from genocide is still awful. Is that? Are we like ranking the? That's what it is. It's like first apartheid, and then apartheid grows into genocide. Jesus.
There's a lot of them. I'll give you one specific example. I don't know if you ever heard this claim that pre-October 7th, there used to be 500 trucks going into Gaza.
I've probably heard like the vague claims, but not the specifics.
So that's never been the case, especially when they're talking about when they're comparing it to the amount of food trucks that are going in post-October 7th. So the 500 trucks thing basically comes from like a poor stat of before the war, aid trucks would only go in on weekdays. And it would include not just food and shelter and everything else, but it would also include like building materials and electrical equipment and concrete. And after the war, the only trucks that were going in were aid, tents, food, water, etc., some fuel trucks. But then what people did was that they took the average of aid trucks before then on the weekdays, called that the daily, excluding the weekends, and then got this number that sometimes on some months looked like closer to 500, if even that. I think even then it was more closer to 300. But then after the war, they would use the 500 number to compare it to the number of food trucks going in afterwards. So when they were only going like 50 or 70 or 100 trucks in a day during the war, they would compare that to the 500 number, which included mostly not food, and then they would make it look basically like every Palestinian was getting like a fifth or less than that of the food that they needed, which would imply that that's why I think famine is imminent was a line that I first read in like October 16th or something. And it was a lot of it was based on that assumption that just Israel was not allowing enough, like even a fifth of the amount of food that they need. But now that the war's over and the number of like malnutrition related deaths never got close to what would be needed for like the definition of a famine even by the IPC, then it looks like that was just completely overstated, and they were just that was like just poor data that is contradicted by the UN's own numbers.
Well, then I'm curious, like when people are using what you might call overblown or hyperbolic numbers to define things like a famine or a genocide, like what about the Israel-Palestine conflict is unique in such a way that like they would be willing to jump to conclusions that you think might be preemptive compared to any other similar conflict? Like, why is this the one where you think the facts are being obfuscated in such a way that the international communities would say, it's a genocide, but only because I'm basing it off data that is apparently misreported or overblown?
I mean, I can't speak to every single human rights org or like the UN, but I can speak to some parts
so he
of it.
thinks
maybe.
all of them are wrong.
Like the human, like with the UN, it's easier to explain because like, what is the UN? The UN is just all the countries like voting on things, like to put it in the most crude way possible. But a lot of these countries, or even most of these countries, aren't even democracies. And 50 plus of them are very, very anti-Israel. Like they're part of like a bloc almost, like a voting bloc. So depending on the way that the Human Rights Council works and the way that countries are cycled in and out, we had a period, I think, not less than 10 years ago when Iran was heading parts of the Human Rights Council. Like, why? That doesn't make any sense at all. Like, what position do they have to comment on the human rights of any country, really, given what they do?
Interesting. that the majority of the issues he has with the facts favor Israel. That is bullshit. He keeps lying, and the horse doesn't do jack shit to hold him accountable. He's not bringing any facts.
Like to their own people, let alone other countries. But so when the UN Special Commission that does a lot of these reports on Israel-Palestine was appointed, it was a particular time when the anti-Israel voting bloc was just like quite big. And
it's been genocide at least since the Nakba. Oh shit, it might have been a genocide even before 1947. Day one.
They gave them like a really, really broad mandate, much more than any other human rights inquiry has into any conflict, to talk about, to do reports on Israel-Palestine, an indefinite mandate, which also doesn't seem to happen for other Human Rights Council appointees. And then they appointed 3 people, one of whom went on a podcast to talk about how he believes that Jews control this, to complain about Jewish control of social media. Another person who was supposed to be like an impartial judge reporting human rights in the region was a BDS activist. So I can see there where just like there are voting blocs that are just very against Israel, like usually in the Middle East, and they can get together and use the UN as a kind of weapon against Israel. And countries that don't need the UN as much, like America and all that, just don't really apply the same.
I'm willing to believe
pressure.
there's like bias in such places with the UN, but like when I'm looking at like the international community, like all of them combined, like is there such a like?
What is it, like 40 or 60?
Me, it does sound almost like
Muslim states?
Schizo conspiracy. Like everyone just hates Israel so much, that's why they're willing.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a conspiracy. You can just look at how many Muslim and Arab majority states there are, and then you can just look at how they all vote consistently on this issue. I mean, the votes are all public on the UN resolutions.
To accept not as credible facts and evidence as to whether or not this necessitates a genocide, right? Like, is this the case with literally every single organization that's come to that conclusion, or like? Because the UN is like plausible to me, but it can't be. The more organizations that declare it, and then I start to say, well, now I don't know. Like it seems.
Well, think about where the UN gets this information from, right? That matters as well. Like it's not just. I don't think you can just explain it because of like anti-Semitism and like the Muslim voting bloc. I think that explains part of it, like a good part of it, but it's also the fact that the amount of information that's allowed to come out of Gaza. It comes from citizens in Gaza who live in a closed society where Hamas still dominates, and the IDF whose their information is like military intelligence, right? So they're not going to share that stuff with just like with random international like lawyers and things like that. Like that's not really, no military would do that like in the middle of a war. They might do it afterwards in a trial, but they're not going to do that right in the middle of the fighting, especially if one of the people writing a report is like a BDS activist or has been. But yeah, of course they wouldn't do that. But the information is actually quite limited. So although there's loads and loads of different reports, the information pool that they're drawing from is actually fairly small. So when they want to talk about famine, for example, they might do analyses where they sample different communities in Gaza. They talk to families. They get like measurements of like arm circumference or child malnutrition, and they get these numbers. But it wouldn't be the first time that a population has given inaccurate information or is drawn from inaccurate samples to make broader conclusions because of like the closed society that people in there live in. Because if you are living in Gaza in this war and you tell human rights organizations something that Hamas doesn't want you to hear, doesn't want them to hear, then you're in trouble. You're fucked. So there's all incentives on the other side, right? Because Hamas controls a lot of the economy in Gaza, and they control a portion of the aid as well. So, like they're the government. So yeah, you are in a position where the information that each of these orgs is getting is quite limited. So I don't think it's like this.
Quick Sykkuno break. Hold on. Sykkuno being smooth with girls compilation right before the cheating drama dropped. Uh-oh.
Saw you have some DMs from him and like 10 other guys. Not that anything's wrong with that. I support you. You have fun. Just be careful next time when you point your camera at your Discord and you you don't want to leak. You didn't leak the conversations, which is okay. But you really are popular, huh? It's
no need
not...
to murder me like that.
Wait, it was a compliment. And besides, it just means that even though you're really popular, you still wanted to talk to me, right? So it makes me feel a little special in some kind of way. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I was.
You doing?
Poki came to visit. Would you guys?
Tell her I said hi.
I was just near like your neighborhood.
Oh.
So I thought
What
I would
the
come
heck?
into your house without knocking and then say hi.
I thought she was here.
Your roommate is really nice. Your mom, your sister,
Yeah.
they're really nice.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
How's the...
Why do you stream with no pants? That's kind of weird
What?
too.
No, I'm wearing pants! What the heck? I'm wearing pants! If you go without me, I'll miss you even more.
I have a question, Michael Reeves. I have a question.
okay.
Hello. Okay. If I
She avoided it.
build
She's
a
abandoning
glow
us, guys.
stone-
Yes, I did talk to Saikuno, and obviously, yes, he did tell me everything. And obviously, yes, I should not have tweeted that I was disappointed.
out of
She's
the
abandoning
dust, and I
us.
use.
What's hot stuff?
I don't know.
It's Yvonne, apparently.
My water is dead. Hot stuff, really?
Okay, we suffered enough.
Really broad body that's just getting that's just all coming independently to different conclusions. I think they're just drawing from a very small sample of information. And the way that Hamas operates is I think they've made it a big part of their strategy to utilize the humanitarian situation to their benefit. And in some cases, I think that's meant report everyone who dies as an innocent civilian. So it doesn't matter if it's the UN or Human Rights Watch or Amnesty, whoever calls that person, they're all going to get the same answer. It's not like they're going to betray Hamas for a different one organization over another, right?
Yeah, but then my question is then what sources do you trust if it seems like you're incredibly skeptical of numbers that are being used by these organizations? Let me try to present this as a layman. I'll see some news article and it says based on the IPC, 600,000 people are in catastrophic food insecurity. I say, well, that sounds awful. That sounds like we're on the verge of a famine. And then you go at that and you're saying, I'm skeptical of this, or you're just like, let me make sure this is right. The IDF says this, the Gazan Authority says this. I question.
For that IPC classification, by their logic, they were saying that there were more food insecure people in the Gaza Strip than there were in the entire rest of the world combined at that level, by the way. That's what that takeaway meant. It was an insane finding. It was so obviously fucking stupid, but Jesus.
And based on the history of the Gazan Authority, or who are you trusting in order to come to these more skeptical or rejecting the claims that are made by some of these organizations? And why should you trust them over other organizations?
In some cases, sadly enough, you can just use the UN's own data. There's been a few times where, say with aid trucks, there are two big organizations that would count aid trucks going in daily, right? One was UNRWA, the refugee association that is UN funded and is largely made up of local workers in Gaza. And then there's also COGAT, which is the Israeli body for aid to the Palestinian territories. And they would publish daily numbers for how many trucks are entering the Gaza Strip. UNRWA's numbers were lower for a good long period. They were much lower than COGAT's. So COGAT would say 120 trucks went in today. UNRWA would say 30 or 40. And UN bodies, because UNRWA is the UN, or Amnesty or whoever else, would say that they would use UNRWA's numbers. But I only need to look at UNRWA's own website to this day, which says we are only accounting for ones where our workers are able to log the trucks. We do not talk for every single truck that goes into Gaza. Our numbers are incomplete, and they will update in the future when we get more data. So UNRWA admits that their data is incomplete. COGAT is the Israeli side, so they're literally, and Israel's the one that approves trucks going into the Gaza. So they're the ones who would have the full numbers, and UNRWA were not. And so I see this, I can even show you if you want, but there's an Amnesty graph in their report on the genocide where they show you the discrepancy between UNRWA and COGAT, and UNRWA have much lower numbers of monthly trucks going in than COGAT. But then if you look at UNRWA's website today, now that it's been retroactively updated, they're back up to numbers that are closer to COGAT's. So there's a thing going on where UNRWA will and you can have that situation happening even when no one's being biased, right? UNRWA will just be able to count less trucks because they are only a portion of the aid distributors in Gaza. So they put that number out. They're a UN org, so people believe them and say that's the best number we should use for truck numbers. We're not going to trust just one state over another, Israel over Hamas. So they'll put that number out, but then the report goes out, the outrage comes in, the newspaper headlines come in, and then a month later, UNRWA gets more data. They update their data page, and it actually turns out that COGAT's numbers were more or less correct, or maybe a bit higher than UNRWA's at the end, but still closer. But then that's it. The damage is done. Then we just move on to the next cycle and the next one. This happened for a year and a half or 2 years. That's one. Again, that's one example. There's plenty of other ones, but.
Wow, he's laughing. He thinks the genocide is funny, by the way, guys.
We keep getting specific that I can't verify. I'm not saying you're lying to me, by the way. I'm just saying clearly there is what I'm hearing is there are more uncertainties than are otherwise being portrayed by some of these communities, but. Again, as a layman, when I look at this and I say, okay, I hear the statements from the government that shows that Israel has an intention to wipe these people off of this land, regardless of whether or not that's literally killing all of them. You'd agree that if every Palestinian moved to Libya tomorrow, Israel would follow them and kill them, right? Even if it was somehow internationally viable, that's not what they want. They don't want to literally kill every single Palestinian. It's I want these people not to exist on the land that we feel is rightfully ours, and we want to do everything we can to acquire that, right?
Does Israel believe that Gaza is rightfully theirs?
That's my understanding, unless you have a correction.
It's more the West Bank.
Religiously, that's almost definitely not the case. As far as I know, there's at the very least some Talmudic or whatever maps will include Gaza.
I think at this point, they probably want Gaza on the West Bank.
No, I don't think Israel wants to own Gaza. I don't think they actually care for that so much. So obviously the extremists do, but as a majority, no.
When you say the extremists do, the people making decisions.
Not the government. No, I don't. Parts of the government. I think maybe Ben Gvir and Smotrich want it, but they are voting. They're like a block of two parties that make up like what 10% of the vote in Israel. But no, the majority of Israel doesn't want to own Gaza. They just want Gaza to not be a threat to them anymore. That's like the general opinion in Israel. Obviously, some believe that they can achieve that by getting them all to run away. But I think the more realistic ones, and I think Netanyahu is probably more realistic than his counterparts in this sense. I think they know it's just not going to happen. They'll talk about Libya or like whatever African country they spoke about, but at the end of the day, I think they're aware that you're not getting 2 million people to leave Gaza. I think maybe 100,000 have left in the last 2 years, if even that, and that was to go to Egypt, and they paid to go there. Like Egypt charged them extortionate fees, and they had, I think a lot of them had family there, and a lot of them were people were saying that they were planning on leaving anyway. Like so, yeah, there's not. Yeah, Israel, like, they left Gaza in 2005. Like, they pulled their settlers out of Gaza. They didn't pull their settlers all the way out of the West Bank, because the West Bank is where a lot of the religious, like, holy sites and all that shit are, whether they call it Judea, Samaria, and all that. But Gaza is less important to them as, like, territory.
Maybe I kind of focus on, like, a too specific claim of they want this land. Obviously, they want the people there to not be there so that the violence stops in their eyes, right? So whether or not that means, oh, you know, Gaza is part of Israel proper, and we have always deserved it, is kind of different from the question of, do we want to kick these people off this land so that, you know, rocket attacks stop, or that Hamas doesn't have, you know, so much territory right next to us? Like, I guess that's kind of not as important as whether or not they really want the land there. It appears to be like, we want to clear this place off, whether or not we achieve that through war, whether or not we achieve that through financial means, whether or not we achieve that through settlements. Like, that's the intention, though, right?
When you say that that's the intention, are you saying that like the government is like pursuing this seriously? Like they're sitting there thinking, okay, how do we get 2 million people out of Gaza? Or are you thinking, like,
especially ever since Trump got in office, it seems to me that like the major plans and what he's kind of greenlighting is like this complete transformation of you know what is like Trump Gaza, right? Like,
yeah, but at the end of the day, maybe something changed. Didn't that ultimate Gaza peace plan that Trump put forward, which I hate by the way, but like didn't that plan rule out ethnic cleansing of Gaza?
I'm not sure to the extent of which it ruled it out. It seemed to be that there's a lot of displacement happening and not a lot of opportunity.
Wait, when you say displacement, the displacement's happening within Gaza, right?
My understanding was they're being kicked out of Gaza.
Hey, you can send them up.
Again, it's been like a year and a half since I read it, though.
No, I don't. So the people who have left Gaza since October 7th, I think it was about 100,000 of them, very early in the war, went to Egypt, and they were being charged, but they paid to go to Egypt. Like they went through the Rafah crossing, and Egypt charged them like really like scummy extortionate fees to let them out, and then they closed it. No, I don't think. I don't think like Israel's been kicking people out of Gaza.
No, I don't even know if
Unless
they have
you count.
been.
Sounds like apologia to me, guys.
No, the plan, the only plan I saw come up was and how much of a plan it was, because like you get this weird dynamic where Netanyahu will say that we spoke to Libya about them absorbing this many people or whatever, but then Libya will say, oh yeah, we never said anything. What are you talking about? So yeah, but then I don't know. Like, are we seriously thinking that? Like, I would be quite surprised. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think it's impossible, but like I would be quite surprised if you at any point in the next 5-10 years started to see like Libyan boats pulling like hundreds of thousands of people out of Gaza, and like Israel signing off on this. As far as the displacements that have happened in Gaza, mostly the displacement has been like almost all of it's been internal, as in like they bombed the north, they sent people south, then they bombed the south, sending people north, and now they've gone like they've they've started occupying the eastern half of Gaza, and they've pushed people west. But as far as like any serious plan to think that 2 million or even anything close to them are going to leave the Gaza Strip for good, I don't think that's being pursued as like serious policy right now.
Okay, well then, if that's the case, my question. Well, no. Again, like I'm the least well read on this. Seems to be what I'm hearing and seeing from various headlines and articles I read. But like, when let's say this blows over and there's some sort of like not reconciliation, but like, all right, the ceasefire exists to an extent, and we go to pre-October 7th conditions. What does Gaza look like then, if that's the case?
Are you asking me what I think is going to happen, or what should happen?
Based on what you've just said of like what Israel's intentions are, what do you think is going to happen?
Again, I think it's probably worth pulling back and just thinking about like for most Israelis, not like for the extremists or whatever, but like for most Israelis who have politically fluctuated a lot in the last 20 years. They went from 2 states to this, right? Like in 20 years. What do they want? Like, I don't think they care what happens to Gaza so long as Gaza doesn't attack them. I think that's where most of them are at. Like if Hamas's strategy had been to not fire a single shot at Israel for 5-10 years, then Israeli leftists who advocate for 2 states or whatever, they would come back onto the political scene like immediately. They would easily gain support, and the Netanyahu blockade, whatever Ben Gvir Smotrich types would go politically extinct. Like they would not have a leg to stand on. I think what people miss is that they try to ascribe like other motives to be the primary one, like they want it for religious reasons or they want it for ideological reasons. No, generally, like it seems to be, given how Israel's made peace with other countries, it seems to be that if they're not attacked, then they're happy to let, if they feel safe with it, they're happy to let territory go.
Yeah, but I think that's like presupposing something, which is like, yeah, okay, maybe they don't just like want Gaza for some like obscure ideological reason, but they necessitate that they are going to keep getting attacked with the Gazans here, right? It's like, oh, well, if they just didn't attack, but they know they will be, therefore we have to move forward with the knowledge that that is how Israel views it. Not as, well, as long as they don't attack, like then we won't do anything. But it's like, okay, but they have kind of accepted the presupposition that they are going to be attacked from Gaza, right? So like then what?
Yeah, well, okay, so this is where we're going to come back to the earlier part of our conversation when we were talking about what needs to change. And I think I gave a pretty long spiel about what needs to change on the Israeli side and the Western side. This is also where this conflict can't end without changes in the Palestinian side as well. And I think this is probably where a lot of the Western people tend to lose me, because it's like, oh, they're the underdogs, like they're responding to rough conditions or like horrible situation. But at the end of the day, Hamas's strategy failed. The dominant Palestinian way, ever since 48, has always been a failure. They've like every time they've tried like these strategies of like armed resistance, it's always been a failure. Every time they've struggled to distinguish between whether or not they want a state in the 67 borders and to recognize Israel, or whether or not they want to fight for all of it, where they want their attacks to be against settlers or against Israeli citizens in Israel proper. Like this is where the Palestinian side needs to change as well, and where their supporters need to change, because I don't think this conflict can end with just the Israeli side having their minds shifted towards two states. You're going to also need to change the consensus, at least amongst some of the backers of Hamas, whether it's like Turkey or Qatar, or within Hamas, or within Western supporters who Hamas also pays attention to.
Do I need those quest items?
This idea that Hamas's strategy has brought anything other than destruction, shit, and war, whatever, like that, then that cycle is going to continue. If Israel elects the most left-wing government on earth that they've ever had tomorrow,
it's the key tab.
But Hamas are still in Gaza, and Hamas still gets control over Gaza and still has a level of freedom of governance in Gaza, they're going to attack again. And every Israeli right-winger is going to come back out and say, hey, we told you so, you left-wing fucking soy lib fucks. We're going back to blockades, we're going back to security, we're going back to bombs, fuck you. And then the left-wingers lose the argument. Do you disagree with anything I've said there? Or?
Well, you said a lot. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily know for sure whether or not I can like say, well, factually you're wrong, or I disagree. But like, yeah, it does seem to be the case.
I saw it,
Hamas is committed to a greater plan of like conquering Israeli territory than just we exist and we don't hurt each other. But again, I guess this is getting more into the like, oh, how you move forward here. When I'm still kind of stuck on like the genocide thing and like how it's viewed from the Western perspective. Like the whole reason I wanted to have this conversation was I hear all these points from the international communities, from the pro-Palestinian side, and it seems to be the case that what Israel is doing is unjustified. And when I talk to people, even people that were more amicable toward Israel, like post October 7th, like immediately, even now they'll say, well, Israel's gone too far, XYZ reasons. The Netanyahu government is so right-wing and crazy, and they need to be displaced or voted out. And so when I say, okay, like, is it a genocide? And you say, like, well, I'm not sure I can trust, these sort of numbers, or these things are obfuscated or overblown. Okay, let's say that's the case. What then is what is Israel doing that isn't proper? I mean, like,
sorry, you cut out there.
What are they doing that isn't proper? And like, what like, are they doing war crimes? Like, is it ethnic cleansing? Like, or it seems like they don't want to ethnic cleanse. Like, I'm getting a lot of mixed messages here, and there's a lot of information being spouted again.
Sorry, let me click this because it's been linked 7 trillion times in chat. Jesus, fuck. Oh my God, was Trump told to tell the press that the image was doctored but misunderstood and told everyone that he was depicted as a doctor? There you go.
This is due to the fact that I have not read on this, but like I'm a bit confused about like what would you say like the most legitimate criticisms of what the government is doing now, and why is that illegitimate based on the way you've described the Hamas intentions?
Okay, sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I'll just the list of things that the Israel's done that's not proper.
I'm asking a lot.
That's okay. That's okay. That's fine. So things they've done that are like the legitimate criticisms. One is that they again, it's a right-wing government, very similar, like akin to Trump's one. Like Pete Hegseth, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That mindset of that like rules of war are for are gay and retarded, like those kind of, that is very, very popular in like the upper echelons of like Israeli society, and it's spread across the society as well. Like they vote for people who believe like that kind of shit. So the fact that they have like on paper, like in a classical sense, like you have IDF rules of conduct, which are pretty much like on paper in line with international law, but then you have division commanders, people who are in charge of like 10,000 soldiers, who are settlers, who are telling their soldiers to just go into an area and shoot whoever because they don't dress in uniform anyway, so just spray and pray like that, which is illegal. You're not supposed to do that, right? Or like when you hear about strike decisions being made where a NATO calculation might say that this target is worth like 5 or 10 civilians, it looks like the Israeli conduct is saying something like 30 or 40 or 50 per strike. Like there's a level of proportionality here that I don't think would ever be accepted by any NATO country. This is why Biden withheld a large arms shipment, right? So in that sense, and the permissiveness as well, like I think in the whole history of Israel, and this was ages ago, the longest that I think an Israeli soldier has ever been given in jail for murdering a Palestinian by their
it's like 4 months or something.
Was, I think it was 3 years. Maybe
was it really? I don't think of it any over a year. No,
that's the longest an Israeli soldier's ever spent in jail for murdering.
It might have been a conviction for 3 years, but I feel like they all got released early. I don't know if it was by Sharon or somebody else, or Netanyahu, but I feel like it's been like fucking 4 months or something stupid. Somebody can link me that 3 years one though. I'd be curious to hear that.
Palestinian. Of course, you're going to allow, and you got 3,000 soldiers, 300,000 soldiers operating at one time or another. A lot of them being like conscripts. Like you're going to. And you have that kind of incentive structure, of course people who want to commit crimes are going to commit crimes. And doing it at the upper levels as well is like really, really scary. And it's something that like any NATO or any Western ally shouldn't stand for. So what should be done about that? Again, like, I mean, I wish we had a Democrat in power because Biden was president at a time when, for the first time, I think ever in American history, Democratic sympathy for Palestinians exceeded sympathy for Israelis. That never happened before. And that only increased throughout Biden's presidency. So he started doing things that American presidents have never done before, sanctioning settlers, even actually sanctioning part of, I think there's like one military unit in the West Bank that was behaving improperly, let's say, committing crimes against Palestinians, and they were disbanded by the. So like if Biden could have had more push there, and a second Democrat administration by someone to the left of Biden, like Kamala Harris, could have gone further with that, that would have been a very welcome thing. That should have happened.
So
as for the peace plan in Gaza,
give me a sec though, because based on some of the things you said, so say there are generals or politicians with command over tens of thousands of people that are prescribing things that to me sound like, you know, essentially like the greatest atrocities that we've seen in history. Not like these are the specific ones, but like are akin to where it's like, hey, just go kill anyone, right? At what point does that stop being like individualistic on, oh, well, this guy who's in charge of this many people did that and that's bad, versus it seems to me that there's a greater project within the government or the military to do these horrible things, and that's why so many organizations are calling it this like a genocide or ethnic cleansing or like systemic war crimes, right?
Well, the interesting thing is that I don't think I've seen human rights organizations use that argument that I made, because they try to argue that it's like...
Oh, sorry, I thought you stopped talking.
Because they try to argue that it's like a top-down decision-making thing, or they try to argue that it's because of the aid distribution, or like it varies. But like what I'm saying points more to maybe not so much like genocide with like your special intent, but more a system of just not really giving a fuck. I think like ambivalence to war crimes is very different from actually going out there and seeking to massacre and like murder people for its own sake. Like I think there's a difference between someone saying like, oh, there's a gunshot coming from this building, we've got like, okay, well, blow up the building. Like I think there's a difference between that and saying and like genocides where civilians are rounded up, they're bound, and then they're just shot in the head when they're literally posing no threat at all. There's like one by one. I think cutting corners in war and committing crimes is very different from that.
Yeah, I want to stop you there because that is interesting to me. It's like, yes, obviously, if you were to take something like, all right, where they're rounding up every Palestinian and just, you know, killing all of them in a pit or somewhere, like this would be like the most unambiguous, like this is like as bad as the worst genocide we've ever documented in history. So clearly this is that. But when you're talking about this like ambivalence where the government or the military leaders or whoever are making these decisions or ignoring these violations are saying, I care so little about this population that I'm willing to ignore what I guess you use numbers that are like, you know, 1.5 times as many casualties, twice as many casualties as like what would normally be allowed in these situations. Like if the ultimate conclusion is this population of people is irrelevant to me and like that I don't view them as like the same kind of humans as I view my own people, like at what point does that cross the line of like, all right, this might as well be considered the genocide if we're killing these people, or is it specifically because you think that G word conflates or points to the kind of things you talked about of rounding people up, where it's like, well, we shouldn't use that because now we are ascribing those moral prescriptions to it. Can you make that distinction, or do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah, but again, it's just a question of it's a question of legality almost. Like the same way that we assess murder, right? Like murder by killing someone through negligence, or killing someone out of passion, or killing someone out of carelessness is different from killing someone with cold-blooded intent. We do this with crime all the time. Like intent matters, and since dolus specialis has been such a central feature of genocide case law forever, basically. Like, yeah, I think, of course, why wouldn't you have that separation if that's kind of been a feature of the law for so long?
Well, it's kind of like the same as like the apartheid thing we're saying, where it's like, to me, it doesn't.
Okay, but he's calling Swipill retarded and that he doesn't know anything about this. He's asking LonerBox questions. He's trying to learn more shit about it. What the fuck? Chill.
I guess maybe if there's some like international prescription that happens as soon as you say, oh, it's the G word has happened, it's genocide, we have to do this now. Okay, maybe that's when the dolus specialis comes in. But for me, it's like, okay, on one hand, I've got people rounding them up and shooting them into a ditch somewhere, and that's obviously terrible. On the other hand, I have people bombing a building. Maybe there's a Hamas built in it, and they know that 100 civilians are going to die when they do this, so they don't care. They're apathetic to those deaths. Then it's like, well, ultimately, this is like a distinction without a difference, like the utilitarian consequence. A bunch of civilians who don't need to die are dying because the people don't care that it's happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
You keep saying distinction without a difference. I don't think you necessarily believe that.
Uh-oh.
If the Israeli government was like, I want to kill Palestinians, we're not talking about Hamas, just Palestinians, and he communicates that to the war cabinet, and they send it down to the IDF, would there be 70,000 dead in 2 years or 700,000 dead in 2 years?
Right. So obviously I recognize the difference of like, yeah, if the explicit intention was kill every Gazan, you're gonna see a big.
Not even kill every Gazan, but just kill them, right? I can't remember the way that the initial Nazi communiques were when they were sending people into Poland, but it was like you go into a village and you kill all the inhabitants. You kill the inhabitants, right? Or you go into an area, the soldiers might stand, but this population don't take prisoners and things like that. Like it's very. It doesn't have to be kill them all, but it has to be it's giving a broad mandate to just kill civilians, generally, not we're going to aim for terrorists and
it's giving
civilians come along
genocide
with it.
vibes, you know.
It's not like that, but it's that's why I think it's different. That's why given
acknowledge
Israel's
there's,
firepower,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah,
but that's why the intent matters as well, because you're saying it's a distinction without a difference. I think an Israel that wants to commit genocide is not killing 70,000 people in 2 years with their firepower. They're not spending the amount of money that they did on precision weapons and guided missiles and the millions of phone calls and text messages and staying on the phone with someone for 2 hours to make sure they've cleared a building before they bomb it. They're not doing any of that. They're just going to use probably a fifth of the weight of tons of bombs and just sweep the place, and that's it. Boom, done.
Right.
And then
I'm saying obviously there's a degree to this that could be severely worse. So sorry, when I say distinction without a difference, I don't mean this is the worst it could possibly be. What I'm saying is that a level of negligence that you've described in their actions are akin to essentially saying, yeah, this population is irrelevant to me, casualties are irrelevant to me. I mean, I've heard the statements of, how many Palestinians is one Israeli life worth, right? And it's okay, if you're going to treat this with a level of negligence that caused this amount of excess death, regardless of if the intent is I want to kill every Palestinian, it seems that there is a degree of excess death and negligence that is causing just ethnic cleansing by virtue of how you're doing it, right?
But we have other words for those things. We have war crimes. We have. I don't doubt that some unit somewhere in a year or two's time will have come out to have committed crimes against humanity. We have other words for these things. I don't know why everyone has to rush to the worst one, or to the one that hasn't really been applied to this kind of behavior in the past. Usually the term genocide has been limited. The Bosnian War, they
I was going to say, I was
restricted it to
that.
Srebrenica, not to the entire. Yeah.
So yeah, I know vaguely about the whole Kosovo, Albania, Serbia thing, but when you say they restricted it, how do you mean?
As in, I think it was the European Court that said the whole war was a war of genocide, and the ICTY, the International Tribunal, said that the Srebrenica massacre.
LonerBox being called Slim Destiny. What the fuck?
Itself, that 3-day massacre of 7,000 or 8,000 people, that was genocide, but the general war campaign was not. That's why I think there was never really a conclusion on whether or not Milosevic committed genocide, right? Where
really?
it was Krstić and Mladic.
Maybe all my friends and knowledge from this comes from people that are Albanian and Kosovian. I don't even know. Kosovar, yes, I should know. Oh, that's fucking stupid. They told me this. I thought it was pretty unambiguous that Milosevic was genocidal. I mean,
not legally. He was never
Just not
found.
legally.
There was no final judgment. There was because he died, but also because even after he died, like there was they had plenty of proof of the intent when it came to Mladic and Kristich, I think it was, the generals who were talking about like getting digging equipment to come in to dig the holes and talking about how they're going to avenge the Serbs for what the Turks did to us. Kosovars aren't Turks, but they were, Milosevic was not legally found to have committed, to have been genocide.
If he wasn't legally found, I guess that's like kind of more to like my question originally, where it's like, okay, like clearly some degree to this was genocide, where they're going out and wiping out civilian populations, and we can't prove that the enough intent to show that the guy who orchestrated this did it, and only a few thousand people died, I think, overall in this genocide. It wasn't like a complete wipeout, but like, so then what's the point of saying it is or isn't there, right? Like that and like if anyone were to come up to me and say the Bosnian genocide, and I would be like, well, you're just talking about this region, right? I would say like, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly the consequences of what you're talking about. And like, if I would apply this to Israel-Palestine, I wouldn't have this level of like scrutiny for the people saying it. Hey, it's a genocide. It's like, yep, pretty much. I understand why you're saying it and the degree to which you mean that, unless they're prescribing this as like Israel wants to kill every Gazan, which I don't think most people use that term to mean that, but maybe you're having different conversations.
No, it doesn't have to mean they want to kill every Gazan. To have like a special intent, like a specific intent with an action to I think the standard they use is the only reasonable interpretation of what they're doing is to achieve just killing this national group, right? So that's why. So if another reasonable interpretation is they find Hamas like to be perfidious and they don't want their soldiers to hesitate, so they tell them not to hesitate, that wouldn't be like that's another reasonable interpretation, right? Like it doesn't have to be a good interpretation, but it can be like you can interpret it to be that way, and that's where their mind was going. But like if we're talking about taking what they're doing and like having that negligent attitude to war crimes and saying, well, like that might as well be genocide, then well, you can do that if you want, and I wouldn't be surprised if the ICJ ends up doing that, honestly, given what I've read about their previous
Wow. So you were citing legal cases, but now you're saying even if the legal case is against Israel, it won't change your opinion. Zio Shill.
Statements on it. But so even if they decide that, though, and we decide that that's the genocide going to broaden to include that negligence for civilian death at a systematic level, well then, okay, but then you're also including so many acts that we used to previously not call genocide into that. Then everyone in World War II committed genocide, right? Britain did when they bombed Hamburg and Dresden. Fucking Hamas, every Hamas attack ever has been genocidal. Most of Fatah and what they've done with their attacks would have been genocidal. Like every Assad genocidal, maybe even HTS at points might have been genocidal. ISIS obviously did commit genocide. Hezbollah definitely genocidal. Like you're broadening it to include absolutely everyone,
but,
right?
but like I think even the first example I might take issue with the idea that like, oh, what we did in Hamburg, like it wasn't like I don't even know like to what extent war crimes were defined back in World War II, but like these kind of like total war campaigns of bombing entire countries was just like the basis of what every country did in every single war at that point, right? Like that's what every country was doing to each other, which I think is not as comparable as to say like, I might even agree Hamas's actions in Israel are genocidal, especially based on their charter of we want to literally wipe these people out and kick them off their land, right? Like, but the Hamburg thing I think is a pretty big difference.
Not exactly. Like what they called it strategic bombings. Like those civilian bombings, the firebombing, they were controversial at the time. There was hesitancy before doing it. I think it was the Soviets in the case of Dresden that were like literally like they were begging for it to happen because they didn't want to face they wanted to soften the ground before going in. And I think at the end of the war, Churchill, when he was literally thanking like every fucking part of the military for their contribution to the war effort, he left out Bomber Command because it was so controversial. So no, that did stand out at the time as well. And with the stuff that they were saying, like this is literally an event unloaded on only a few thousand tons of bombs, not that many, but they killed like 25,000 people in like 2 days. Like it was insane. And they targeted the center, even though all the military.
Did your Facebook monetization get fixed? No, but I did find some Facebook people. Thank God. So hopefully it's on the way to getting fixed.
Factories and everything were outside the city. And they believed that terrorizing the civilian population would push them against the Nazis, would demoralize them. Like so, they believed they were targeting civilians, right?
Yeah.
So
what I'm saying is this
again,
isn't unique
the problem
to like the bombing
that,
of Hamburg or Dresden. And yeah, you can say it was more controversial at the time, but like, yeah, it just as much as like dropping the nukes on Japan, as much as firebombing of Tokyo, like I'm trying to think of like what would make that specific Hamburger Dresden unique to compare to like every other bombing campaign in that entire
But that's
era.
the thing is that like but then even today though when we talk about the Middle East, then suddenly very little becomes unique. You can look at what Trump was doing in Trump 1, where he was relaxing rules of engagement in Afghanistan, and where you had American generals saying like, oh yeah, these SAN words, all these SAN N words, they only understand force. I'm going to show them force. Did that person commit genocide when they were like allowing the use of landmines, which they knew would kill civilians, or relaxing rules of engagement on airstrikes, which doubled the civilian death toll?
Is a genocide. And also like I would say that Trump very clearly like expressed genocidal intent when he says like, hey, you know, I'm about to wipe out an entire civilization, but like the follow through on that and the consequences afterwards I think are part of that, obviously. So like again, I don't know if this is necessarily making it too broad, because you're saying there's a broader and consequential result that is being caused by a complete systemic governmental ignorance of war crimes, and kind of like forcefully moving this population, versus like, hey, every time you do a war crime and are ignorant about it, that's a genocide. I think like the scale matters, how widespread it is matters, and like, yeah, you can point to certain examples, but I don't necessarily think that diminishes the definition such that it's useless.
I think it might not make it useless, but it does dilute it. It 100% dilutes it. It would include, like I said, it would include Saudi Arabia, it would include the Houthis, it would include Hamas, Hezbollah, it would include the Syrians, it would like 5 different factions. And
this might be true. Again, I'm not super informed of this. Like, don't people call it like the genocide of Yemeni by the Saudi Arabians?
Well, the IPC didn't actually even call it a famine in Yemen. Interestingly, they think like 80,000 kids died. the UN. By the IPC, the same people who said there was a famine in Gaza
Kind of
didn't
weird.
say there was one in Yemen.
Kind of weird.
Okay. I mean, based on what, again, uninformed, based on what I hear from both of those, they both sound like, and one is severely worse. The Yemenis, the death toll in Yemen.
Little sus, some
why
might
do you
say.
think that
Sussy
distinction
baka.
exists again? Is it because of this, like, is it just Israel bias? Is it because the organizations are using the numbers from the UN that has the Israel bias? Like, go back to that question. Like, why is there that?
I think in that case, the IPC was making maybe a similar mistake that UNICEF made in the 90s. There was a time in the 90s when most people thought that the sanctions on Iraq had killed like 500,000
500,000, the meme.
through starvation.
The meme number.
Because of similar methodologies with interviewing families and child mortality and malnutrition. It turned out that the data was just being inflated because of like the directions of Saddam Hussein's government. And retroactively and all that, since people got access to Iraqi documents and they found out the life expectancy hadn't changed all that much at all, but to this day, I don't know if you've ever heard people tell you this, like, I know there are a few lefties online who still believe this, that like the US sanctions or the international sanctions on Iraq killed like 1 million or 500,000 Iraqis. It wasn't true. It didn't happen. Like,
I don't know about the sanctions. I just know about like the death.
But yeah, I think it's a similar thing where you've got a closed society, a very limited access to information, and a situation where you just have like, yeah, it does seem to be the case that humanitarians, I don't even necessarily fault them for this, like they have to say something, like they have to go with whatever the best that they've got. But it seems that the best that they've got, I don't know if it was influenced by Hamas or the field workers on the ground were being biased, or like maybe they only had access to clinics, and clinics are going to overrepresent people who are malnourished, and they applied that to the broader population. There's a few like hints to what happened there, but like I have not really gone too deep into why I think that bias exists in every part of the international organizations. I've just read enough of the reports to know that it does exist. That's all I can tell you.
Right, because like when I hear that, it's like, okay, there's at least some bias. I'm even willing to accept that, but like it.
That much?
I guess
No.
is your this is my perception of what you believe, and tell me if this is wrong. That it's like, I mean, or if you take like the worst thing that like a chatter might say, it's like, oh, you know, Zogbox is like, you know, saying like he trusts Israel over every international community, but like,
True.
Is it more that you see flaws in their analysis and therefore you're more skeptical of it, or that you kind of like you're like waiting for that criteria to be met, and then you're like, okay, now I'll call this a genocide because I haven't seen definitive proof of X.
You're lucky.
Yeah, well, I mean, I see that.
Go sleep, you old man. You're tired.
Making the same mistakes over and over again.
Oh, but now you're awake?
Well,
And
I
I
saw
see
you hanging out
Hamas.
here, and I was like, it's 7 o'clock. I shouldn't go to bed yet.
True.
an organization that is amazing at propaganda and terrible at fighting war. So they know that they can. I see Hamas basically exploiting the methods of these like rights organizations. That's probably what I put it down to more than anything else.
They're exploiting,
I'll give you a very
reporting it in
clear
such a way
example
they
of it.
know that the rights organizations
Yes.
will misinterpret.
Yes, yes. We know that. So there's a cycle that happens ever since the first war with Israel and Hamas in 2008. Hamas will hide their deaths, they'll hide their losses, they'll say they're civilians, they'll tell people to say they're civilians, and then the rights organizations, Goldstone Report was an example of this, will go by the standard, which I think is a good standard if you're a rights organization, is they'll say, if there is doubt, they're a civilian. If we don't know what their status is, we're going to say civilian until we're shown otherwise.
Because assuming the opposite would be like extra liberal with the definition.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So Hamas, all they have to do is raise the doubt. They can just, we'll just fight out of uniform. We'll just integrate our civilian with our military institutions. The IDF are not going to share their intelligence with people from outside of their country. Like they're not going to show they're working to like a UN reporter. So then the UN basically has the best information they can get. And then it looks like the IDF targeted a bunch of civilian institutions. I think in the first case it was like police stations, for example. And then it's only a year or two afterwards when Hamas needs to court their own population and remind their own population that they're the ones who are fighting for Palestine and they're the ones who died for Palestine. Then they'll publish their losses, which you can find on their website. And it turns out like the IDF numbers were quite close to Hamas's, usually a bit higher, but not that far off. And that's happened. I've seen this happen by looking at Hamas's own data from for at least like 3 or 4 different conflicts. And it's starting to emerge very slowly now with this one. So, but that's not a human rights organization doing anything wrong. They can't go into Gaza. They can't, they can survey the population, but the population is in a dictatorship, a very brutal dictatorship of Hamas. So they're limited with what they can say to people on the outside. The IDF doesn't want to share intelligence. Human rights orgs have the best information they can get, which is doubt. So they're going to assume civilians. And then a year and a half later, when all the press has died down, Hamas actually admits their losses and no one cares.
Okay,
I think that's happened since 2008.
Oh, shit.
I'm going to try to summarize what you said. Tell me if I'm getting something wrong. People who are upset and calling this a genocide are relying on human rights organizations. Human rights organizations are relying on numbers that are with a high level of uncertainty because they're coming from a confined and war zone that has not a lot of information coming out that might have misrepresentation in it, and therefore they are being very liberal. And a lot of bad things and war crimes and stuff could be happening there, but the level to which it meets the genocide might be obfuscated by the fact that these facts are very muddy. And therefore, people who are calling it a genocide are basically in a more of a moral gray area or like a level of uncertainty that isn't as confirmed as you think it is.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And I would probably also add, what was I thinking there? I had like 3 things I wanted to say.
Yeah,
okay, I'm gonna pick one.
Also, I don't have a heart out, but I'm going to talk to Dylan Burns in like 10, 20-ish minutes. So after
what
this,
about 6, 7 minutes? Shut up, Mutin. That was my joke.
Okay. Right. So,
bitch.
I think a big problem with doing. You said like why they're like people call it a genocide because the human rights report said like I don't know if that's true. I heard people calling it genocide like when there were still Hamas fighters in Israel. Like I think that word came out really quickly. And I noticed it being used by like the activist groups like for a couple of years before that as well to just talk about the entire conflict as a permanent and that's been going on for ages. They've always I feel like that conclusion has been decided before anything.
Did I leave weapons off 2 different units?
By a lot of people. But I think the problem, and maybe why, again, I don't really talk about this like particular debate that often, but like I think the reason it is an issue is that you get into a situation where if you don't know your enemy, you can't fight it. If you don't know what the problem is, you're not going to have any power over it. And if there's ever any mystery as to why this Free Palestine movement on the college campuses have managed to be the most popular, probably the biggest Western social protest movement since BLM, right? They were massive. I think if you want to understand why they were so fucking useless despite being the size that they are, it's because none of them actually cared to look into the details of what was happening and they didn't know what to ask for. So you have calls for a binational one-state solution, which no one in Palestine has ever in majority wanted, even a plurality. it. They start calling for like sanctions and abolishing of Israel, or like unilateral withdrawals from Gaza or the West Bank or Lebanon, or they're talking about arming the resistance groups or defending them. They're like downplaying anti-Hamas protesters who are literally begging Hamas to stop firing rockets from their neighborhoods and hiding underneath them in tunnels, like literally saying this and no one reporting on it.
There's some
the reason
overlap,
that
though,
they
right?
were,
I mean, like you at the beginning said, there's some overlap of like you said there's some significant steps that America or Western countries could do to like have specific triggered consequences to actions that Israel takes. And it like I would guess that 90% of protesters don't have like an informed view of like what that exactly looks like, but that's kind of what they're asking for, right? And you seem to say this is probably how you get them to rein in their worst atrocities, right?
Yeah, so like I don't fault most of these because I met a lot of these protesters. I went and spoke to them because I was genuinely curious about them in my hometown and I went to like 2 different cities in Scotland to talk to these people. I don't fault them as human beings. Most of them are like very decent people who have just seen way too much fucking death and too many like dead women and children and all that. Like any human being would look at that and just feel fucking horrified and want it to stop, right? I don't fault them on that level at all. But the thing I fault is the thought leaders, the people who are giving them pamphlets and talking and teaching them about the conflict through this very biased lens, and teaching them about Israel and turning them into a movement that ceases at some point to be a humanitarian movement and just a deaf, dumb, and blind hatred of Israel movement. And then you get into a situation where any improvements that could have been made by the Democratic Party, or any distinction between the Democrats and Biden, between the Democrats and Trump, they get ignored, right? So if it's all genocide, then if it's still going on, if every airstrike that's gone on in Gaza and if people are still dying, we're still going to call it genocide. So what's the difference between Biden and Trump? And then you have this apathy that comes out of it. And then
I think that's like the biggest agreement I'll have with you. By the way, I'm not saying like I majorly disagree on everything you've said. Mostly it's just like I either agree or don't know. But yeah, the idea that if you call it a genocide, I think this is the strongest argument against it. Then if you're able to say that Trump and Biden and Kamala are complicit in that, then yeah, like, well, then what's the point of voting for them? Are they going to make it even marginally better? Are they going to push towards a better solution? Oh, well, no, because it's both genocide. Therefore, I shouldn't like try to stop Trump, right? Like that's probably the strongest argument I can think of. Like, that's why you shouldn't use the G word if it is.
It's not even. I'm not even saying this is why you shouldn't use the G word, because again, like how many people who call it genocide are sitting there looking at UN case law and making that? No, it's a political term. Like it's an activist term, and I've usually had more sympathy with people using activist terms just to communicate a feeling, right? Because what happens is when you see like your 800th fucking video of a dead mother or like a dead baby, whatever,
whatever. Look at how he doesn't even care about all the death.
Of course, you're going to want the
Pretty
most
cringe.
like the strongest word to describe that, to match to that feeling. Because otherwise, like someone trying to say, well, maybe not genocide, maybe more a war crime. Well, then it's suddenly you're like, oh, what? So this isn't that bad, and it becomes like more of a moral argument than anything else. But as far as it's not so much about the G word thing, but it's more just about like understanding like where just getting a better understanding of the Israel-Palestine conflict in general and over the facts of the situation in general, because I think what happened with like all of this maximalist language and maximalist perspective is that, yeah, like I said, like and you were saying as well, I was going to talk about
Darius, break. Hold on. Did he get into a car accident? What happened?
It was legit, no hate. But I don't know. Like we lost the house. Like we weren't able to renew the house because Chicken Andy.
Oh!
Batshit insane.
Oh no. Whoa!
What the fuck is he doing?
Sorry.
I got into a fucking car accident. My fucking phone fell on my fucking thing.
I'm sorry, it's not funny. It's not funny.
Is this guy's car done?
It's done. His car is done.
That doesn't sound good.
It's fine, bro. Stop being a hater. Your car's never made a little noise before? It's never purred? It's never purred for you before?
How long ago was this?
I don't know. It was a clip, so I guess it just happened.
Rip.
But like forgetting that distinction between a party that can actually listen to demands and make differences versus one that can. So Biden, for example, sanctioned settlers for the first time ever from a U.S. president. They hadn't done that before. He withheld weapons, which were resumed on week 1 by Donald Trump, right? That those like it was like 2,000. It was a couple of thousand 2,000-pound bombs and a bunch of 500-pound bombs. They were paused by Biden. They were resumed by Trump. All the sanctions on settlers were removed by Trump. Trump was the one who initially recognized the Golan Heights and the Israeli sovereignty over all of Jerusalem. Famine was never declared by the IPC under Biden. Did you know that? It was only declared under Trump. The GHF, the fucking cataclysmically fucking pathetic, inhumane, murderous fucking aid plan that the United States and the IDF tried to implement in Gaza was a Trump idea. Biden would have never gone with a plan like that, or Harris. Like that was a strictly Trump thing. The Trump peace plan. Trump excludes the PA from any future governorship of Gaza. They only want like literally Israeli armed stooges running the strip. Biden wanted the PA involved. Biden tries to be a partner with the PA because the Democrat official position is a two-state solution and the PA are the legitimate government of Palestine. Trump said no. Trump said the legitimate leaders of Palestine are some fucking gangsters who are taking money from the IDF or from the Israeli state. Like, these differences matter, and the fact that people just overlooked it, and when people just said, oh, it's all genocide, because like it cheapens that difference, and it cheapens the potential that you have to actually address that difference and work with it. Democrats could have continued to be pushed by a left flank that actually had a coherent critique and a coherent plan. They could have been pushed, as we speak, they could be getting pushed right now to do better things in Gaza and to convince and to push Israel to do better and to punish Israel for not doing better. But they're not, you know, they want to boycott Starbucks. Okay, well, you know why Starbucks is boycotted? So
I vaguely remember this. Like, what, they donated money to Israel? They had Starbucks in Israel? I don't even know what it was about.
There are 0 Starbucks branches in Israel. The last one was closed in 2003. Starbucks is on the boycott list because an activist group of union workers used their union page with a Starbucks logo to publish a picture of Hamas at the fence on October 7th saying we stand with the resistant. And Starbucks sued them for using their branding to support terrorism. That's why Starbucks is on the boycott. It's fucking mental. Like, yeah, you have to know what you're talking about to be an effective political movement. I don't know. Fuck. Sorry.
Okay.
Well,
valid boycott.
I'm not a BDS Starbucks boycott the Starbucks person. But, okay. Well, there are 2 things I want to go say before I go. The first is prescriptions from you. The second is just kind of like my summary of everything. So the first one would be, you got all these people, not just my chatters. Let's say they're all saying, not they're all. There's some people in here saying, oh my god, fucking genocide denialist, LonerBox, right? Like, because you've made this very specific definition. So these people have the energy. They see the death. It's very obviously bad to them, whether or not that's negligence or war crimes, whether or not you want to call it ethnic cleansing. How do these people get this to stop? I mean, like, where should this energy be directed to? It seems that, like, regardless of whether or not we agree on definitions, you absolutely have smoke for the Israeli government for what they're doing. You think they need to be sanctioned in certain ways or held accountable by other governments. So how do we move forward with that as activists in this country, as people who are going to be voting? Like, what should these people be directing their energy towards? Obviously it's not sitting outside Starbucks to tell people not to buy it.
I mean, you can't really do all that much at all now that Trump's the fucking president. I don't know, get a Democrat back in and get them to push things that are actually like, okay, so push for accountability in the IDF. If America's going to share intelligence as a Western liberal military that abides by the Geneva Conventions with Israel, then Israel needs to do the same. Israel needs to abide by the Geneva Conventions. They need to punish people in their military that don't. America can do it. America's jailed people for 20 years for committing war crimes. Get the IDF to start doing that, and if they don't, then you're going to lose some arms shipments. Fuck you. Settlers, sanction them all. Like, they should all get fucked.
Wait, pause, because I see where you're going with this. So, like, let's say we have people and we're voting for the midterms to try to get, MAGA out of power, and you're asking, people are like, hey, Gavin Newsom, is this a genocide? Like, do you think Israel's an evil country? Should they be kind of pushing for this, what you're saying, like, hey, will you hold Israel to account for its war crimes? Like, that's what they should be asking of their representatives, or like, what should the populace be asking the people they're voting for? Like, the specific politicians.
To me, like, the most effective protest movements are ones that have simple and sharp and realistic demands, right? Just give them a few. Just be like, yeah, will you put condition on arming Israel? Like, will you say, if you're going to get arms, you have to abide by a level of conduct that is like in line with the Geneva Conventions
their arms now?
or NATO, right? That's a simple demand. It's a very easy one.
Shut up!
Are you going to
Shut the fuck up!
Are you
Shut
going to
the fuck
involve
up.
the PA in governorship of Gaza? There's a few. Yeah, I can go on all day about things that they could say, right? They're not going to do it though. They're fucking retarded.
Well, that's
Good
the
luck.
thing is, like, yeah, most of the demands I see is just like, will you completely stop every arms shipper to Israel? I mean, very recently, I think AOC just I don't know if I want to say like caved or capitulated, but like changed her stance on this, right? Where she's just like complete, like, I will fund no weapon shipment, even if it's Iron Dome stuff, right? Am I crazy, or did this just happen?
God damn it.
That seems to be where the conversation is happening now. But the point is, it's like, I think it's like an 80-20 or even like a 90-10, like, anti-Israel sentiment in the country. And it's like, if that energy and that sentiment exists, like, there has to be a realistic thing that can be asked of the people that are going to be elected in the midterms in 2028.
That's what you're like.
It's like, yes, conditional aid is good. Holding Israel to account for war crimes is good. Geneva Convention upholding is good. International law upholding is good. And that, I think, is a way to move past the, like, oh, if you don't call it a genocide, like, you're a genocide apologist and you're justifying everything Israel does, which is like, again, if you just look at this conversation, people might have smoke for the things you say, but it's so clear what your intentions are. I don't see how you could obfuscate that as, oh, this guy wants Israel to keep doing what they're doing. So, yeah.
Listen, I don't want to turn you against your audience too much over little old me.
I am the opposite of audience guy. Every single person here could
Yeah.
be screaming at me for platforming you, and I'd be like, whatever. Like, I'm just trying to learn and do the best for what I can. Like, it's I jumped into the middle of this, all right? It's like that fucking, in the Looney Tunes with a cat and the dog are in a big cloud of smoke and there's fists coming out of it, and then I stepped into the conversation and I'm getting all the fucking smoke, but I don't know what the hell, like, how to navigate this and have the best prescriptions, and that's why I'm trying to ask people. I'm like, I should probably talk to more Palestinian activists too. Or actually, yeah, like, what would you say, like, are there Palestinian activists that you hold in high regard that say, like, these people are informed and you should speak to these people and learn about it from their point of view?
Well, yeah, I can give you a list that's like 10 or 20 names long just off the top of my head if you want. Even like, actually, someone who criticized my views on fucking genocide actually just recently. His name's Beast Brocess. Me and him disagree on a lot, but he's like a very smart person, and he's well-intentioned, and he'll teach you something that's different from what I've told you. So yeah, you should. I would say him. I would say. Again, like that Ahmed Khatib guy. Again,
I'd say dear leader
perspective, but he's pretty decent.
I'm the most pro Pali.
A lot of these Palestinian politicians would talk to streamers as well.
Yeah.
Hanan Ashrawi is someone who has spoken to. She was part of the peace process back in the 90s, and she spoken to a few fairly small creators. She's a really interesting person because she was involved in peace talks through the early 90s as well as the late 90s. She's been involved in a lot, and she still is. She still talks to Israelis about this or that plan going forward.
Actually,
who else was?
wait, hold on. You cut out after forward. Sorry, this is like a tech issue on my end. After forward.
Oh no, I was saying. This
is a debate tactic.
True, it is.
Who was? Fuck, there was a name that even the guy that wrote the 100 Years War, Rashid Khalidi, he would talk to people.
Oh yeah, maybe I should definitely try to set that up. Oh, also,
yeah,
maybe past that second step, step 3, I'd be willing to facilitate a debate with you and someone else if that's something you're interested in.
Depends
I don't
on
know.
who.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure you've done this a lot. Like, again, I'm just now stepping into this after just vaguely understanding it from various sources. Well, here's my summary. Like, what I wanted to accomplish, and I'm not going to attribute this to you because I don't think it was accomplished, but not because you didn't do something right, but more of it's just a very messy situation. Like, I got a lot of heat when I said things like, I'm anti-Zionist because if Zionism is something that necessitates ethnic cleansing, then I don't think it's justified to do it just because of the atrocities committed by Jews. And people said, well, if you talk to people that are more informed on the situation, I think you wouldn't have that opinion. Do you think there is some... This is going to sound like condescending, but like magical set of facts or words in a certain order that would have me change that opinion?
That Zionism necessitates ethnic cleansing.
If Zionism necessitates ethnic cleansing, then I don't think it's justified, or I am anti-Zionist.
Oh, that's a really. This is why I hate fucking buzzwords.
Yeah, it keeps going
I have
up
no
and
idea
down.
what you mean, Zionism.
By Zionism, I mean, like, if you go back to the 40s, and it's like, wow, Jews sure have been persecuted and killed and driven out of every possible thing, and there might not truly be a safe spot on Earth, especially in the wake of the Holocaust. Maybe we do need to give them a homeland. Like, that necessarily doesn't not make sense to me. It's like, okay, yeah, like, I get why this happened, but now looking at the project today and saying, okay, can you maintain the sentiment that existed in the 80s that probably might not exist so much in the 21st century, to my understanding.
Fuck you.
Without racial quotas, without pushing people off their borders, like, is that the only way to maintain Israel as a state? And if so, then maybe I think it needs to, like, radically change.
Okay, so when you say ethnic cleansing, you mean like forcing people away from one place and somewhere else, right? That's like pushing them off the
or
land.
Settlements, or war to drive them away, like stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I don't think Zionism necessitates any of that. If the Arab leaders accept, I don't know when you got to this in the Khalidi book, but like, if the Arabs accepted the partition plan in 47,
yeah,
from
can't
the
go back
UN,
in time.
That plan did not
LonerBox.
entail ethnic cleansing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they accepted that, the Zionists are, if they want to ethnically cleanse, they're fucked, right? Because there's literally the Arabs have accepted a state next to them, and they could start a war, but they would be immediately the aggressor.
I'm not saying
but
Zionism necessitates ethnic cleansing. I'm saying if it does, then that's like.
Oh, if it does,
I am saying that.
I mean, if it does, then obviously yeah, then I don't know, but it depends on what you mean by ethnic cleansing. So, Zionism, I don't think it ever needed to go to a war where they're literally like going to people's doors and telling them, if you don't leave, we're going to shoot you. Like, I don't think it had to be that. I don't think even the war in Gaza had to happen. Right? I think Zionism could have easily existed with a Palestine existing in Gaza and the West Bank alongside them, and no one would get kicked out ever again. That could have happened, and Zionism would still exist. Israel would still be a Jewish state. If you're talking about like back in the 1800s or the early 1900s, where Zionism involved them buying land from absentee landowners and evicting the tenant farmers who lived there to let Jews in, I don't think Zionism would have existed without that. It needed some of that to fulfill its goal of.
It's more about like
Jewish
in the current day,
continuity,
like
but-
perpetual.
Yeah,
actions
okay.
being
Because
taken
yeah,
rather
we
than-
don't have a 100-year war because
Current
bad
day? Did
workers'
somebody
rights
say
in
current
the
day?
fucking 20s. Yeah, I know.
Trollface.
You know, Zionism doesn't. Yeah. If Zionism necessitated ethnic cleansing, like what indefinitely, then yeah, of course it's a bad thing. Yeah, that's a broader historical conversation. But I think maybe one thing that is worth asking you, and we can maybe talk
Oh yeah,
about this
yeah. If
another
you want to
time.
wrap up by asking questions of me,
yeah.
actually, that's fine.
One thing to ask you is, and maybe even your chat, is when you talk about Zionism, there's all these kind of like frameworks, you know, like these themes that come along with it, like a mind map, right? Like, so you think about Zionism. If you read Rashid Khalidi's book, you probably heard about Zionism entails like ethnic cleansing, imperialism, Jewish supremacy, displacement or transfer, like imperialism, settler colonialism, like all these themes come along with it. Why does refuge never get mentioned before anything else? Like Zionism even during the 48 war, when like was to get Arabs out, before any of those goals, the one thing that drove Zionism more than anything else, and this is actually even written in people like Herzl or people before him with Ginsburg and all that, it was refuge. It was about safety. It was about people who believed that as Jews, we are currently on the road in the 1800s
so now
of assimilation.
we-
where, like, most Jews
Oh,
believe that if
wow.
they sort of like give up most of their external Jewishness and they assimilate to become Poles or French or Russians or whatever else, then they will be accepted and they'll be safe. Zionists were the minority who said, no, if assimilating will not help us, we will always be Jews. Modern nationalism is going to fuck us everywhere we go. They were right. The Zionists, they won that argument, okay? And everyone in Europe and everyone in the Arab proved them correct by fucking Jews, regardless of what those Jews did.
Wait, you said we. Are you Jewish too? Are you a brother? Oh,
no, I'm saying this is what they're saying.
Okay, I was just
They're
double
saying
checking.
we.
But go on.
I'm very not Jew. Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
You're not invited to the cookout.
I'm not. No. Yeah. So that was like that's where Zionists like that was their main argument. And had it not been for all the crimes of like the Russian Empire or the Nazis, or had it not also been for every other country basically closing their door on Jews, like a lot of Jews went to America before they went to Israel. But then in 1924-25, they passed the Johnson-Reed Act, which was designed to cap the number of Jews entering the country. And then if you look at the graph of the number of Jews going to Palestine, British Palestine at that time, that's the first time when it starts to really boom. As soon as America closes their doors, then they're like, okay, well, where else are we going to go? Well, I guess there's Israel, there's Palestine. So before anything else, Zionism is a refugee movement. They are people who had nowhere else to go in the world. And throughout the beginning and the middle of the 20th century, progressively, every country closes their doors. The Evian Conference in the middle of the fucking Holocaust is basically like, yeah, that's bad, but I don't know. Did they have to come here?
Like,
and then after they saw the camps, I think America made an exception for like a few 100,000 Jews, but Johnson-Reed stayed in place. They kept their quotas. Rest of the European countries kept their quotas. There was a pogrom in Poland in 1946 after the war ended where 1,000 Jews were killed. And then, so these people had nowhere else to go. And then they go to the Middle East, they go to Palestine, which is the one place where they seem to have any hope of living in some kind of like sense of safety or having, which they believe the only safety they can have is as a nation where they're the majority, because that's like, you know, and this is happening all over Europe as well with like post-empire nationalism is like the new progressive way for persecuted groups to be safe. They go there, and then the Palestinian leadership, in the early 20s, the Palestine Congress is headed by a guy, Musa Qasim al-Husseini, who believes in the protocols. He's writing to Churchill about the protocols of the Elders of Zion, which he believes are authentic. And then you've got the head of the Arab Committee.
The protocols of the Elders of Zion is the secret Zionist Jewish community that was trying to fucking take over the world and kill all the children.
The Hajamin al-Husseini, I think it's his brother or his cousin, he is a Nazi. He's literally recruited by the Nazis to do propaganda and to get Bosniaks in Eastern Europe to take part in the SS. So these are like the leaders of a potential Arab state in Palestine. And the Zionists are kind of thinking, well, I'm not too sure about that. That's quite dangerous to a group that's just been fleeing. Right? So they decided that this is the last place we're going to run away to. We've been praying about Jerusalem for like 2,000 years or whatever. So like they plant their flag in the ground. They accept the partition plan in 47, and the Arab leaders say no. They want all of the land to be Palestine. And obviously the Palestinians at the time, yeah, you guys have suffered a lot, but like why is that our problem? Like, why should we give up our? Yeah, because they're becoming nationalists as well. And then yeah, they have a pretty just cause in that sense as well. But again, it's like just causes clashing together. But then after the 48 war and Israel being established, all the Jews in the Arab countries, in Libya, Morocco, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, like all of them are blamed for what happens in 48, and they are persecuted. They're already being persecuted in some places. They're being criminalized. Like Zionist activity is outlawed by Zionist activity. Like in Iraq, it was like if you had a biblical map of the Holy Land, if you possessed a map, you could be convicted of Zionist activity and extorted and jailed. So they get the opportunity when countries open their doors to leave, and pretty much all of them do. Each one of these countries completely empties of their Jewish populations that have lived there for like over 1,000, 2,000 years, and they all go to Israel. Some go to France, some go to America, but most of them go to Israel. And like the question I'd have for you, sorry for the fucking rant, but the question I would have for you is, why is that particular theme of Zionism, like that, the bigger motivator than anything else, the theme of refuge, why is that just never brought up by anti-Zionists? Like, why is that never mentioned, let alone the thing that kind of drove it in the first place?
I guess, I mean, like, if you want to give, like, the steelman position of why it's not for the steelman for, like, the Zionist position is, because this makes them look at the very least a little sympathetic, and, like, you can't introduce any amount of sympathy to Zionism. But the reason I wouldn't bring it up is, like, or I do bring it up, but I'm just like, this doesn't matter to me now, is it doesn't justify the worst parts of the consequences of having established it that way, even if it might have, again, been a just cause. Like you said, like, these just cause clashing have led to 80 years plus of conflict, and does that necessarily, like, I don't know why I can't say necessarily today. Does that necessarily mean that, like, anything that happens after that must take into consideration, like, Jews need refuge? And I guess the answer is, like, no. I think it doesn't necessarily come into the conversation for me now, where it's like, yeah, okay, maybe in the 40s this is the worst it had ever been, probably, hopefully, will ever get. But that doesn't mean that, like, now I'm going to take that into consideration of Israel's current actions, of what will happen with Palestine and the West Bank. It's a lot less important to me. That was like the whole thing I brought up at the beginning. Where it was like, if Zionism necessitates the actions that Israel is taking now, which it seems to not be, and your prescription is that it doesn't, like, it matters a lot less. But yeah.
Okay, but I think that does address. But to the question of anti-Zionism, like, obviously anti-Zionism is like Israel shouldn't exist at all as a Jewish state. Like, is that what you believe?
I don't know if I think that
he is a mega Zionist. Oh no, XQC, who are the victims? Poke, you realize people can be victims of cheating, right? Oh, true. Gosh, she's a queen.
To exist anymore. By
the
that,
debunker has logged on.
Out, but like, does any ethno-nationalist state need to exist? Like, does Japan need to remain fully Japanese? Does Germany need to remain fully German? I don't think so.
Okay, so you're walking right into the discussion that I thought we were going to have. So this is like the most interesting thing to me. Fuck. Okay, again, you can.
Okay. Well,
tell me
Dylan hasn't replied yet, so you got some time.
Okay. Right. First question. You said Japan, Germany. I know when you spoke to Destiny, you said something about fear of like black crime in the United States or whatever, or even South Africa. That's probably
I said like
a better example.
The arguments for like keeping racial quotas and
when you say racial quotas, what do you mean?
Like
for immigration,
Israel must have like this many Jews. We can't let this many Arabs in. If we got too many Arabs in, they'll overwhelm the vote, sort of thing.
Okay. So
I'm aware that there are millions of Arabs in Israel, by the way.
Yeah, like a fifth of the population.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that, again. left, right,
Actually
whatever
closer to
Israeli
2/9
Jew
of the
you find,
population.
they're going to want a Jewish majority, yeah, unless they're
Right.
fucking like Hadash or some crazy fucks. Yeah.
Which is like, I mean, most states do this, but like it reminded me, and it was evocative of like white supremacist arguments for, well, if we let
When
too
we
many
say
black people
Jewish
in, or if there are too many
majority,
black people
do
in
we
this city, like
mean
then this will.
Jewish via race or Jewish via like culture, like not culture but religion?
Oh, it's always ethnicity, race. It's always that. It's never religion.
Okay.
Nothing about this has anything to do with the religion. Anybody that brings up
None of
religion
them
is a
care
retard.
about it.
Yeah.
Will happen, and like even if that
Okay.
was true, if there was like a black crime gene, I don't think that justifies the ethnic cleansing. You'd have to like.
Wait, is
navigate
it ethnic cleansing to control your immigration for demographics? To say you can't
isn't
immigrate
it?
to here big enough into mass
I guess
numbers?
it's not
or-
cleansing because it's preventing the ethnic shift at all. But it's like saying
Yeah, it's like saying that if Arabs want to immigrate to Israel, we're probably going to have like low numbers just to keep a Jewish majority. That's like the gist, right?
Sure, but I would view that as the same justification for, hey, there are too many Arabs in the country, let's export a bunch of them, right? Like it's the same mentality. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. A couple of questions. No, wait. No. I think controlling
Okay,
immigration.
let me say it one more time.
He said.
Just to make sure we're on the
He
same page.
said. No. He said.
Saying
Fuck
I'm going
no.
to prevent a certain quantity of this ethnicity or nationality from coming in is the exact same, even though it's not the same consequence. It's the same prescription as, oh, they're already here. Let's get that same number, that same ratio in this country. So either we're stopping them from coming in or we're kicking them out. Either way, this seems to be, I mean, obviously there are nuances of, oh, they're already here, but this is the same sentiment. We need to protect this ratio. We need to protect this majority.
No.
Goofy noise.
Okay. I see what you're saying in terms of like their mindset, but okay. I would rather get turned down entry to a country than kicked out of where I live.
Yeah. That's like why I said, like,
Yeah,
well,
okay.
if it's already here and this is your home, obviously you're going to have a distinction
Okay,
there. But
yeah.
like,
Okay,
it's the same
you're
sentiment to me.
you're making me want to ask so many questions. Okay, so one,
Okay, fire away.
You mentioned America or like a fear of like black racism or like Japan or apartheid South Africa is a good example, right? Like the fear of giving them voting rights because black people became the majority with voting rights, right? My question is, do you think anti-Semitism and anti-white racism are equally valid concerns?
There you go. No.
I
No.
think the people who make the arguments view them the same, but
Doesn't
I think
matter.
anti-Semitism is a obviously much more realistic one. I mean, like, you know, there are people who say white genocide. That would be like the utmost, like you are conflating a slight decline in your demographics due to natural population shifts to this country came in and tried to wipe out the Jewish population versus like.
Be careful not to get caught up in defending or disagreeing with certain things because you think it leads to another thing.
So what do you mean in this instance?
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Sometimes there can be things that are justified. The reason why we say those things are bad, though, can rest on the underlying fact of the matter. So, for instance, when we say that January 6th was bad because it was bad to perform or to commit to an insurrection, it's not really what we mean, even though that's what we're saying, because we're taking for granted the underlying fact of the matter. If it was the fact of the matter, first of all, the country was founded on insurrection, right, and rebellion against. So it's kind of weird to have that as a rule, but which isn't the best argument. But then also there's the fact that if it was the case that Democrats and states and the Democratic Party had like conspired to steal the election and rig the ballot box, do all these other things, I mean, like. You could argue that, or not even you could argue, like maybe an insurrection is justified in that case, right? The underlying fact of the matter does matter here.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So this idea of like, it would be bad to have a white ethno-state, right? But like, so then why is it okay to have the Jewish ethno-state? Well, the underlying fact of the matter of are Jews threatened in the world? Yeah. Are white people? Not really. But if white people were, I don't know, maybe you could make that argument. Yeah. If we had a country of 1 million white people and we were surrounded by 100 million purple people or whatever, and they all wanted to immigrate, you could argue that, well, and especially if they wanted to kill you, well, the fact of the matter there is you probably should protect your ethnic population in that case because it is under threat, Yeah.
Same thing. Like anti-white racism is not even close historically to
Semitism, yeah. So my next question is, Israelis don't want to be a minority in the Middle East. They don't want to be, and logically, any country that does become a majority there would be Arabs because that's their neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Can you name a single Arab or Muslim country in the last 100 years that has protected their Jewish minority adequately?
Oh my God.
So if Israel
Zionist
ceased to be this bad thing, you say, an ethno-nationalist state, preserving a demographic, if they cease to be that, how are you betting on, what are your odds on the Israeli Jews and their futures?
Okay, well, this kind of goes into like the very beginning of what I was saying, which is like, it is entirely plausible to me that if there was a significant Muslim voting bloc in this place that had anti-Jewish or anti-Israel sentiments, that this could lead to apartheid. It could lead to persecution. It could lead to ethnic cleansing of Jewish and Israeli people, and that would not be good. And that's not to say that like, oh, this is the natural consequence of what is going to happen, and you need to let it happen because what you're doing is bad right now. It's just, is that the ultimate and only outcome, and does that necessarily justify every behavior taken to prevent that?
No, we're not talking about justifying every behavior. I'm talking about the simple principle, absent the other behavior. We're talking about the simple principle of Israel being allowed to exist as a Jewish state. They don't need to control the West Bank. They don't need to control Gaza. We're just talking about them existing as a Jewish state, like in this world. So that's basically them saying that we're going to control immigration. And it sounds like you think they don't have a right to want that.
Sorry, my fucking audio does the thing. It cut you off after world. My audience can hear you. I can't. I don't know why my RAM does this.
Okay.
Limeo.
What the fuck was I saying from the world?
For this world, it's like not about justifying actions.
In this world, we're not talking about does this fear justify every action. I'm not asking you that. Obviously, it doesn't. I'm asking you if it justifies them wanting to preserve a Jewish majority in the country.
Oh.
I mean, the sentiment is justified, where it's like a valid fear to see, hey, I've seen that when similar populations get a majority in all these other countries, it seems to like result in our prosecution, death, whatever. Therefore, my fear is justified. But again, but you have to then attach what are the prescriptions to that. And if the prescriptions are like ethnic like superiority things, like, I don't know like to what degree I'm.
No, wait. When you say ethnic superiority things, I'm just talking about one thing, which is they control immigration to the point that it keeps their majority. That's it. Yeah, I'm not saying it justifies any of the poor treatment of minorities or whatever. Just they stay a Jewish majority, which means that if however many, I don't even know how many Arabs are trying to immigrate to Israel, but if a substantial number are, then they are they justified to do that because of their fears?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, what is the difference fundamentally between that and the people who say Muslims who immigrate to America are going to vote Democrat, elect Muslim Democrats, and fundamentally change the country from what we perceive as a Christian white nation into a DEI Muslim nation?
The fact of the matter does
much more misplaced. But like, why?
Like if it was the case that Muslims were going to come and like create a new Sharia law country or whatever the fuck else, and I wouldn't want them here. Fuck Jesus. But that's not my understanding. I don't think that's happening.
Is that argument different? Like, it is going to change the country, whether or not they think it's bad or not, and it is going to.
Because the anti-whiteness or the anti-Americanism of the United States or the anti-Muslims who come to the UK does not concern me in the way that anti-Semitism should concern Israelis. Like, I live in a Muslim community. Like, I live in an I'm not walking up and down the streets worrying about whether or not one of them supports a terrorist organization that wants to kill me, right? If any Arab population becomes the majority in Israel, it would be Palestinians because of what they advocate for with the refugee problem, with right of return.
Okay, wait. The most popular. Basically, tell me if I'm framing this wrong. Palestinians necessarily are going to have such a bad anti-Jewish sentiment that it will cause Jews to be in danger. This is just like
if every other Arab and Muslim country did it in the last 100 years, why would Palestinians not? Palestinians are the group that have the most excuse to be anti-Semitic, right? Literally, they actually have a good reason to hate Jews, let alone the countries that didn't have a good reason to. So yeah, I think if in this day and age, like in this foreseeable future, like in the world we live in now, change. I don't think it's in their DNA or whatever the fuck. Like that's crazy. But like, if Palestinians became the majority from the river to the sea in one country, yes, they would persecute the shit out of Israeli Jews. Yeah, that would be. Yeah, remember, to this day, Hamas are the most popular party in Palestine. Like.
But it's not. First of all, we know that they're
Hamas
not like a
gets is the party.
Right? Like it's not a plurality.
You don't need to be.
Hamas what?
He said Hamas gets is the most popular.
No, Hamas is the most popular single political party in Palestine.
Oh, got it.
You only needed 3,000 of them to cross the border on October 7th. You want to integrate them into a country?
Well, that's what's like. Obviously, I think the disconnect here is like, if anyone doubts that I understand like how great anti-Israel sentiment is, I understand this. The problem I see is like, this is a more valid version of like the less valid, anti-immigration, white nationalist talking points, but it's ultimately the same to a degree where it's like, yeah, there are some portion of Muslim immigrants that are like super pro-Sharia, anti-American, but want to reap the benefits of the American state. Like, if it wasn't 100% of them, if it was 80%, if it's 40%.
Hot take. Now, this is a conversation that literally nobody has because people on the left don't believe this and people on the right are too either pussy or retarded to even think of this. But if you could vet for like an extremist religious belief like that, I think it would be okay. Or if you could scream for, I think it'd be okay to vet those people and not allow them into the country. If somebody wanted to immigrate here under the principle that they could enforce some state adoption of or mandate of like a religion or something like that, or punish people for not being in a religion, I think that would be an okay thing to screen out from people, I would say. Doobie is feeding Soypo questions in chat. Uh-oh, is he?
40%. If it's 10%, like at what point does it justify ethnic immigration policies? Like,
should the anti-Arab bigotry in Israeli society concern Arabs such that they should keep Jews from immigrating to the region? Well, if they want to vote on it, they can. But, like, I'm sorry, 2 million Jews live in Israel. And they can leave anytime they want, right? Wait, what did I just say? 2 million?
You said 2 million, but there's 9 million or whatever.
Did I say? No, I said Jews. Sorry. There's 2 million Arabs, my bad. 2 million Arabs live in Israel. They can leave if they want. I don't think they would want to leave. I think they generally do okay there. That's the idea that Jews are trying to kill them all or doing something weird. I guess it depends on how much leftist propaganda you listen to it.
Like I don't. I guess the dichotomy here is like you have to have one or the other, and I'm not entirely sold on like that. Those are the only two options. Either you do this sort of ethnic population control, or you die, and that's kind of where I guess my issue comes in. Of like, is this really the only two paths forward that perpetually have to exist?
No, not perpetually. I don't, again, like I said, I don't think this is in Palestinian DNA, right? Like Jews and Arabs can, like, they live together in Israel. The Arabs who live in Israel with Israeli citizenship are Palestinian, right?
Yeah.
And, they vote for parties like RAM, which they come from the same reformist Islam, like school of thought that Hamas came from, but they preach coexistence, right? Of course, it's not impossible, but we're talking about whilst this ideology still exists and whilst you poll every Middle Eastern country on anti-Semitic attitudes and the protocols and the Holocaust and all that shit, you get like 70, 80, 90% strong anti-Semitic attitudes. Yeah, yeah, it's like you said, like when we talk about Muslims coming to the UK or America, like what happens? I think we've had one suicide bombing in 10 years with millions of Muslims living in the UK without, they're not all being monitored and there's not like a military fucking breathing down their neck and surveilling their phones and all this shit all 24/7. We got one suicide bombing.
Oh, Doobie's the top dono. The top Chad. Isn't this essentially the argument slavers used to extend African-American slavery? We have the wolf by the ear and we can't safely let him go. So what? They're just oppressed forever? Well, slaves, I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure this is true. Slaves were never a majority of the U.S. population, right? Even at the height of slavery? What was like the percentage makeup, the difference between white people and black people in the U.S. at the peak slavery moment? Like, I don't think there was ever a legitimate threat that all black people would rise up and kill all the white people in U.S. society. Like, man, you know what's bullshit? Do you know what the 3/5 compromise is?
Yeah. It made a black person...
I think of all the things that have ever been negotiated, that's like the most cucked, retarded bullshit, fucking cucky bullshit ever. I would kill myself if I was black and I had no rights, but you could get votes for me. That's the most insane fucking shit. That's bullshit, right? Like, hold on, well, we don't get as many votes. That's not fair. We need representation. For who? For your slaves that don't have any fucking rights? Okay, well, how about at least half? Okay, god damn it, we'll give you 3/5. That's crazy. That's wild.
In 10 years, Israel, right, shares a border in a very small region with with West Bank and Gaza, and even with the Oslo Accords and with like some communities getting freed up with areas A, B, and C, or when you had like the blockade on Gaza, or when you had the occupation of the settlers coming out, you get Hamas and you get rockets being smuggled in, and you get people crossing the border with paragliders that go and stab people and shit, or you get fucking suicide bombings. Like, yeah, this concern is just not the same. But yeah, it's like you were saying, like Jews have been told that you will not survive as a minority in any Arab or Muslim country in the last 100 years, but you should just take your chances with Palestine.
It's what needs to change before it's not justified to do it the way they're doing it. Like, because you say
if it's not a legitimate threat, that's it.
But like you're basing this legitimate threat on this. You said like it's justified for a lot of them to have.
The legitimate threat is based on literally all of history in the entire region as it exists today. I mean, what do you want? Like, Jesus.
Say because a lot of them are oppressed. War crimes are being committed against them, and so you say it's not perpetual, but this keeps happening. Like, let's say you get your ideal two-state solution type thing. Like, is Lebanon, is Syria, is Libya, is Egypt? Are they allowed to also be controlled coming into the?
They are ethno-states.
Country, like to that extent.
They already kind of are.
Like,
I know.
do.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is
yeah, they all kind of do. Every single other state in the region does. So that's kind of awkward because it's like, well, should they? Well, I guess literally every single state in the region, I guess, already does. Sure, yeah.
You say it's not perpetual, that it's not ingrained in their DNA, but then like what actually would need to change where you say, okay, now we don't need to do this anymore, right?
Well, they don't need to do it anymore. Is like that would be a situation where, let's say, instead of Hamas polling as the most popular party in the West Bank or in the refugee camps in Lebanon, whatever else, what if it was RAM, right?
I hate this talking point by LonerBox. I wish I'm going to be one day the strongest pro-Palestinian debater, okay? You can't say that as long as Hamas is the majority party. This is why I said before, the solution is you run a fucking vote in Palestine and then you make the leaders negotiate. If Hamas wins, then Hamas wins. Fuck it, that's who you have to deal with. If in a government where Ben Giver and Smoltrich, who are insane people, I think both these guys even live in fucking outposts, basically settlements. If crazy lunatics like that are allowed to be part of the Israeli government, I don't know if you really have much ground to stand on to say that, like, well, what if Hamas wins the vote? I mean, Netanyahu is a coalition with some of the craziest motherfuckers in all of Israel. The go-to example is always the Ben Giver guy literally had a fucking framed picture behind him of a crazy ultra-rabid far-right Zionist terrorist who went and did a massive shooting in the Cave of the Patriarchs, I think. Brian Goldstein, sounds like his name. But he had a picture of this guy behind him. It's fucking wild. So, I don't know. I don't like this talking point from LonerBox. What I would say, you can't continue to terrorize or whatever you want to call it, like a group of people, and then say, well, they still prefer Hamas. So what are we going to do? It's like, well, yeah, no shit. Who the fuck else are they going to prefer right now? But, I mean, I agree with like LonerBox on 99% of things, but
Right? What if
I
it's
feel like Zoner. I feel like LonerBox leans a little bit more. I don't know if it's true or not. I feel like he leans a little bit more pro-Israel than I do. But it might just be that he's giving like the pro-Israeli sides, and this is just my inner Zionist alarm, because the only people that bring these arguments up are usually the crazy Zionist people, because nobody in the West knows any of these arguments. But yeah. I think it's just because he's giving those arguments. I feel the urge to push back.
West Bank or in the refugee camps in Lebanon, whatever else. What if it was Ram, right? What if it was the Ram Party, which preaches coexistence? What if tomorrow, rather than River to the Sea and rather than like Hamas and all these chants and all that, there was a new leader of Palestinians who emerged as someone who actually was like Mandela and was saying, yeah, we're going to avoid attacking civilians. We don't want to harm civilians and our like future neighbors. We want peace and equality for two groups who want to share the land.
But where's that movement going to come from if the kind of like the circumstances are the way they are, right? Like the reason I say
that movement emerged in apartheid South Africa. That movement emerged under slavery in the United States. Like, yeah, if it can emerge in these situations, it can emerge in Palestine. Yeah, there are Palestinians who talk about this as well. The problem is that it's not just Palestine; it's the rest of the Arab world as well that is involved in this kind of like. Again, most of these countries are dictatorships, and the control over the media is very tight, and like narratives are very limited. So there is still like this is like you asked me like one thing things that need to change on both sides. The thing that needs to change on the Palestinian side is this idea that normalizing relations with Israel or with Israelis is like a sin. It's like the worst thing you can do. Collaborating, befriending, normalizing, it's all bad. Israel is supposed to be a temporary stain on the Arab Muslim world. That's it. But if they need to get over that needs to stop. And there are Palestinian leaders who have tried to push for this. They get ostracized. They get fucked by their own people. Like, yeah, like that happened back in the 40s and 50s. Yeah, there's just not space.
Would Israel taking steps to try to reduce the kind of limitation of Palestinian democratic say in Israel, would that not be a step towards like creating something like that to happen, or do you think that would just be fruitless?
Limiting Palestinian? What do you mean by limiting Palestinian?
Like saying, hey, we can let more of you in and have more of a say in democracy here.
They won't.
Again,
do that. They won't do that. Right?
The problem you're running into is that like. Think of it as like sectarianism, right? Like sectarianism in the Middle East.
We have Hassan Slop. Hassan is at Yale speaking, and people are hissing and stomping the ground when he speaks. Like, to support him or to be like anti-Hassan?
Intervene in, say, Ukraine or Taiwan. Should the U.S. have gotten involved in something like World War II, even though it's not our country?
Wait, is this the same place that I set up my thing? Oh, it is. I remember that thing in the corner over there.
I think exhausting diplomatic solutions.
Look at his setup. Okay, my white balance should have been turned off, but I didn't learn how to change the white balance yet, okay?
Ooh.
Shut up. My uploader should have changed the white balance on it. My cameras,
world a person can make.
My setup, way nicer.
That is really nice.
It is. It was nicer. I hadn't learned to trust.
Did the cameras just automatically switch when it notices someone talking?
No, I had a switcher there.
Oh.
This is why I advocate for boycotts, divestments, and sanctions from the state of Israel.
Oh, I bet the stomps are supposed to be cheers and the kisses are supposed to be boos, right? Is that what that is?
This is fucking retarded.
Whoa! It's tradition, Mootin, motherfucker.
80 years of apartheid. 80 years of settler colonial violence, ethnic cleansing, mass surveillance, mass incarceration of Palestinians, robbed from their ancestral homelands,
disagree.
With no right to return.
The Jews have to hiss like the snakes they are. Just kidding.
Humanitarian
Troll,
law
just kidding.
Rule in the rule book. Israel has been able to do this because they were an invaluable.
Okay.
It's like when you look at it as an outsider, it looks fucking crazy, right? Like they're all it's arbitrary lines that are drawn that keep conflicts alive for hundreds, if not thousands, of years.
About what?
And I fucking lost it now.
Probably wasn't that good. What?
No, I got it. I got it again. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. The fucking settlers in the West Bank. Why is that a thing? What are they out there settling?
Okay. The key thing to understand for all of human history, all right, is that when you put people on a land, they own it. That's it. That's how it goes. The more people you have, the more ownership you have of the land. Every
the more claim.
Society has understood this. That's why in the Soviet Union days, and I think even prior to the formation of the Soviet Union, there was that concept of Russification, where you try to ship out a whole bunch of your own citizens to go live in some place. That's why in India, it was such a big deal when they started building homes to the north of India.
Is that why we sent people west in the U.S.?
Well, yeah, that was also to just
westward
explore.
Expansion.
Yeah. And every place, the more people you put there, because once you have a whole bunch of people living there, you can have all the international law, whatever bullshit you want, but in today's world, the only way to remove them is to kill them all, or to ethnically cleanse them, is what they call it, for big populations. So you just can't do it. So for Israel, what happened is after the... So initially when Israel formed in 48, they had a very, very narrow strip of land, and they felt like they were kind of at risk of being conquered. Like a thing that they used to say was like the rib cage of Tel Aviv, to represent like the 11 kilometers from the border of the West Bank, which was the territory that was all conquered by Jordan, how long it would take to get from there to the Mediterranean or whatever, right? That's how it was very narrow. So Israel existed in this tiny state of what today we would call Israel minus the Gaza Strip and the West Bank and the Golan Heights in Syria. And what happened was in 67, there was a big war. And as part of this war, Israel fought with Egypt, that owned the Gaza Strip, and Jordan, that owned the West Bank. And they won that war. And it was a big deal. And they were like, oh my God, like we're fucking shit up and we're so cool. And Israel's mindset like pretty quickly changed from, holy shit, we had our nightmare scenario of getting attacked by every country. Nobody's here to help us. And we managed to conquer all. We fucking are ordained by God. We're going to actually like hold on to this West Bank shit for real. So they took over the West Bank. They took over way more than that. The entire Sinai Peninsula, which is a huge chunk of land between Egypt and Israel. They pushed into the Golan Heights in Syria, which is a good strategic position, and almost up to the Litani River with Lebanon, which is north of Israel. So they conquered all this territory. And then as the years went on, like Israel basically thought they were tough shit. They were never going to get beaten by anybody. In 73, Egypt launches another war against Israel, and this time Israel gets kind of fucked up for a couple days. They end up winning, but it's like the anime moment where like the villain or the protagonist, like they win a fight, but their like cheek is bleeding, and after they win, they're like, oh, I can't believe he actually cut me or whatever. So Israel had that moment, and they were like, oh shit. If you talk to Israeli Jews, a lot of them, surprisingly, they'll actually like circle jerk the fuck out of this war. It's called the Yom Kippur War, and they're like, yeah, we got surprise attacked and we fucking won. But at the time, Israel was like, we could get fucked, because for like the first couple days, they were literally talking about nuking the Middle East, because they were like, we're fucked. The third temple has fallen. Moshe Dayan, their defense minister, I think was saying to Golda Meir, I think was still prime minister and everything. But so after that war, they realized they needed to make peace with their buddies. Sadat was the leader of Egypt. He made peace with Israel, and Israel made peace with him, and they get back the Sinai Peninsula. Eventually, after the fall of the Soviet Union in 94, they made peace with Jordan. And then, they're kind of looking around. The Middle East is chilling, but they still have all these Palestinians, and they still have this occupied territory of the West Bank. The awkward thing was when they made peace with Egypt didn't want the Gaza Strip back. And when they made peace with Jordan didn't want the West Bank back.
Okay, so why didn't they want those places?
Because it's complicated, but Egypt didn't want the Gaza Strip back because they just didn't want to deal with taking in the population that was there, and because they didn't want to undermine future Palestinian people's right, or the current Palestinian people's right, to have land. All of the Arab states kind of have this collective agreement where they're like, listen up, guys, we got your back. Kind of, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So, for instance, like in every Arab country, you're not even allowed to give citizenship to a Palestinian. That's why so many of them live as refugees in some of these bordering Arab states. They're not actually legally allowed to give them citizenship because they always want to keep.
But they were owned by Egypt in the past, correct?
Yes.
So when did Egypt get ownership of the Gaza Strip, I guess, originally?
In 1947, there was a big civil war that was fought as the World War II ended, everything wound down, and then the mandate that Great Britain had for the whole mandatory area of Palestine. Once that started to expire, in 47, a big civil war broke out, and then in 48, Israel fought its war of independence, and as part of that war, all of the surrounding Arab states basically saw it as like a giant land grab, and Jordan was able to conquer all of the West Bank up through basically splitting Jerusalem in half, I guess you could say, and then Egypt was able to conquer up through the Gaza Strip.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And then Israel.
And then they were like, wait, we don't want these motherfuckers.
No.
So when Israel went and conquered it, they were just like, yeah, we don't want them back.
You can keep it. Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then for Jordan, on the West Bank, it was the same thing when Israel conquered the West Bank. They made peace with Jordan. I don't know if there was ever an offer to give the West Bank back to Jordan. I don't remember those talks, but I don't think Israel would have necessarily given it back. I'm not sure. But after the 90s and then up to 2000, basically, after that 67 war, and then after 73 especially, Israel's like, we are fucking ordained by God. We've got this. Israel basically started off as this like secular Zionist project. But after 67, people were like, the West Bank, the historic lands of Judea and Samaria, the 12 tribes of Israel, like, oh my God, our people here. A whole bunch of like more, I don't want to say fanatical, but kind of like more religious, more like nationalist, religious-driven Jews were like, holy shit, we're going to go settle the land like the Cetra in Final Fantasy VII and make love to it and do what God wanted. And they started to slowly...
Place. God wants us here.
Yeah, move into it. And then you had this thing called the Oslo Accords in the 90s where Israel and the Palestinians kind of sort of made a formal agreement to finally start to give them a state. But it didn't really work out because like the Palestinians kept terrorist attacking the Israelis. The Israelis would do a thing where like an Israeli will tell you, we didn't expand the settlements at all during Oslo, which is true. They didn't start new settlements, but they kept expanding the borders of like their current settlements. So I think it was in 2000, everything basically blew up because the Palestinians were like, we're not getting peace. This is fucked. And the Israelis were like, oh, whatever, fuck you. There was this whole thing that exploded called the Second Intifada where it was basically Palestinians doing a bunch of terrorist attacks all over Israel. Shit was fucked for 4 or 5 years. Arafat never called off any violence because he thought it was based in epic. And then all the Israelis were like, well, this is fucked. We're never going to be able to make peace. And the leader at the time, Sharon, said that the West Bank and the Gaza Strip was going to be the death of Israel because they can't hold on to either territory because it's like de facto kind of an apartheid. They're occupying a territory that they're never going to give the people equal rights in, but they also don't want to like give the territory up. So Sharon wanted to pull every single Jew out of the Gaza Strip and every single Jew out of the West Bank, but everybody in Israel was like super ass-pain at this. He only managed to get them all out of the Gaza Strip. And there's like videos where you can see Israelis are like crying and screaming as they're ripped from their homes by the IDF because they realize Sharon realized like it's untenable. They can't do this, but he didn't have he wasn't able to remove them all out of the West Bank. At that time, they tried to make peace there. I want to say, don't quote me on this, but I think it was like, was it 200,000? I think maybe 200,000 Jews, if that, lived in the West Bank. But now that number is up to, Jesus, how many are in the West Bank? Is it like 2 million? Is it 1 million? It might be 800,000, 700,000, but it's a lot. There are way, way, way more there. And the issue is that like Israel is just, the more that are there, the harder it is for there to be any kind of like negotiated like territory, because now it's like, well, are we really going to move all these Jews out? And they know that, and that's why they keep moving more and more and more and more people there to kind of shore up their territorial strength, basically. Yeah.
Got it. So then why do the Jews keep fucking with the Palestinians? Is it just because of the October 7th attack? They were like, all right, well, game back on. We're going to go fuck with you.
What you're basically doing is like you basically, you have like tank units, but they never actually attack, but you can draw aggro for them. So the goal is what you do is you take a goat or you take some shit down to some valley, and then you hope that like some Palestinian tries to attack it or move it off your area, and then when he does, then you come in and you fight with him, and then as soon as the Palestinian like tries to attack you, you call the IDF, or the IDF comes in, they're like, oh, well, we're gonna get attacked by Palestinians. The IDF will come in, they'll clear out the Palestinians. Usually they tell the Israelis to fuck off, but if you're an Israeli and you manage to like build a base, if you get like a box or some fucking shitty trailer set up, as long as you can get, it's a microcosm of really all of Israel, of all of the world, is what outposters try to do is they just try to go and they try to start to build like shitty homes and shitty houses and areas out into these like Palestinian areas, and as long as they can get enough there, eventually it just becomes like a de facto settlement, and then it just grows out from there, and now they have like a new little city. Yeah.
But why would... Okay, so I understand why they're going to the West Bank, because they're a little bit more fanatic, etc. So are they just going out there and living off the fucking land and like starting a farm and like having like small families out there and shit, and then...
I mean, some of them will, but I mean, you can travel between... like getting from the West Bank into Israel is pretty easy if you're Jewish, because there are separate checkpoints for you. There's even privately run ones where you could buy your own like ID system to go in and out. So you can always go into Israel proper if you need to buy shit. But I mean, like the communities can be fairly self-sufficient. Like these are all very wealthy people. I'm sure some of these settlements, they have like their own grocery stores and shit inside of the settlements. You don't technically have to leave, I think. Yeah.
Okay. All right. It makes more sense now.
Yeah. But so the frustrating part is, from my perspective, is that the status quo definitely favors Israel, but the whole Western community that's like pro-Palestinian is just encouraging the Palestinians to fight. But like as time goes on, the Israelis are just gaining more citizens inside the West Bank, and yeah, I mean like
they're upping their legitimacy of being there.
Yeah, because you're not going to kick out. Yeah, you're not going to kick out 750,000 Jews. Like even when they were doing their negotiations in the 90s to try to figure out like what the West Bank would look like. A commonly talked about term was land swaps. The goal was they were probably going to land swap most of it so that like 95% of the Jews that were in the West Bank wouldn't have to move. But the reason why was because most of them were near the armistice lines from the 67 war anyway, the 48 war actually, because like where the territory was conquered. So they didn't actually live like really deep into the West Bank. But now it's like grown so much, it's like, well, what the fuck are you going to do?
So why not stop the expansion into the West Bank at this point and kind of just call it like, all right, well, the Jews, they've expanded this far. We can't kick them out in the future.
Who would stop the expansion, though? Because the Jews want to expand there. Now you've got a government that fully supports your expansion there.
Wouldn't the want of stopping terrorism against your people be a motivating factor with stopping expansion?
Fuck no.
Expanding?
You're fighting the good fight. The people that are going out there that are fighting those fights are fucking crazy, but they welcome it. They want to fight. Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah, they're fighting for, and you're fighting from a very safe base of attack as well, right? Like you have the whole IDF behind you if things get like super ultra fucked and nobody around the world.
Bad, you call the IDF and then you got the military to come fucking kill them for you.
Yeah, if you need, yeah, or at the very least like extract you from it. So.
They argue that settlements stop terrorism.
I mean, they do by getting rid of all the Palestinians out of there. So, I mean,
well, yeah, if you kill them
there's
all,
none
I mean,
left, or just you kick them out.
Terrorism. I mean, triple as.
Wow.
Oh fuck. Okay. And then Gaza got kind of leveled because there were the Hamas terrorists there that they had to root out or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Hamas was the government of the region, but
yeah.
I mean, they wanted to get rid of all of Hamas there, which is legitimate. But also, it's like, I mean, Israel is maintaining an untenable. I mean, like, what do you want me to say? What do you think's going to happen? I mean, yeah. I mean, the people in Gaza are fucked. Israel never ever wants that land, but Egypt's never taking it back. But they're not going to form their own country there. I don't even know if that would be possible. There's way too many Palestinians that live there. But they also don't want to connect the territories either. So, like, keeping them separate benefits Israel a lot because you get to have a country of 9 million citizens, 7 million of which are Jewish, and now you've got a fractured 2 million Palestinian state to the west, and then a fractured 2 million Palestinian state to the east. And I mean, each of these are negotiating on their own behalf. They're also adversarial to each other. The Palestinian Authority that runs the West Bank fucking hates Hamas and the Gaza Strip, and Hamas hates the Palestinian Authority. These groups have tried to work together in the past, and they've like backstabbed and cooed each other. It is completely fucked. So Israel gets to enjoy like having their enemies separated into two separate territories, split almost 50-50 population-wise, like disjointed governments. Like the status quo just benefits them a ton. Yeah.
So what is the solution with the Gaza Strip right now?
Depends on what you want to do with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and who decides that? Israel at this point still?
Israel and the United States, which means Israel, yeah.
Okay. Did Israel send in, like, the IDF, like, ground forces to go and, like, clear out Hamas, or were they just bombing?
I mean, they sent in ground forces eventually, but they do a lot of bombing, a lot of ground forces, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like people get mad. Probably at this point, yeah. People get mad, but like Israel does a pretty phenomenal job at limiting civilian casualties as much as it can, given like the circumstances of the battlefield they're playing on. But I mean, like, it's not really like anybody that criticizes the actions in war rather than all the conditions around it, I think kind of loses the plot. But the people that criticize Israel's actions in war, in their mind, Israel's not allowed to do anything. They think that Israel should just cease to exist. So it's kind of a hard point to go over, yeah.
Okay. That was my history lesson for the day.
Nice.
And it doesn't really help anyone to behave the way that they do in a lot of these ways, like whether it's in Lebanon or Syria. But the other, probably more dangerous thing is to just go to one group and tell them to let their guard down and just hope that the other side stops being sectarian in the same way, or doesn't reciprocate, or doesn't just like exploit a vulnerability or whatever. If Israel just starts allowing people in the West Bank to immigrate to Israel right now to get citizenship, then like unconditionally, then they're just taking their chances with
someone. I'm not saying like just unconditionally
Hamas.
Let your guard down, but like is that not kind of what you're saying needs to happen from the Palestinian side in order for this to change? Like you guys just need to ignore every historical thing and get over all of your grievances and just say we want peace regardless no conditions, right? Like
I don't think in 1952 or whatever when Israel normalized with Germany, I don't think they ignored or forgot the Holocaust. I don't think they did that. No, you don't ignore your grievances. Sit there and you ask yourselves, what is this strategy and does it work? The current Palestinian strategy and the current mindset of seeing Israel as a temporary entity, that has clearly not worked. They don't need to ignore their grievances. No, they should demand accountability for their grievances. They should demand reparations to some level, I think. They should demand settlers go. But that's the thing. Like, imagine a Palestinian movement tomorrow in the West Bank that ditched Hamas, that ditched Islamic Jihad, and only targeted settlements, that maybe did like a Mandela-style thing. Let's say they blocked settlers' roads like they do to them, or let's say they knocked out their energy supplies or their electricity lines, or let's say that they saw like a new settlement trying to get set up and they went and tore it down. And they fought with soldiers who tried to defend the settlers. And they said, yeah, we're going to be violent because this is a violent occupation, situation, and we'll stop if you want, but just leave us alone. Get the fuck out of the West Bank. Let us have our country next to yours, and we'll be neighbors. If that was the Palestinian movement, like tomorrow, like Israel will be fucked. Like the Israeli right would be fucked as well, because everything they say about Palestinians will have been proven wrong. Like, and that's the.
Would the IDF not just come in and fuck them up?
What do you mean
for that? It sounded like he was saying like if the Palestinians just kind of got together and they just did like, you know, not like actual fucking terrorism, but like they blocked roads, they stopped power going to the new settlements, etc. I think he said Israel would be fucked, but wouldn't they just call in like the IDF to come fuck them up for that or no?
Well, no, the issue is that like I think the saying, I think there's Abiyaban, the saying is that like the Arabs never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity or something. Like it would fuck up Israel hardcore. Like Israel always gets just enough leeway from unhinged Arab actions to kind of sort of justify themselves to the world and definitely to their domestic population. So they got it during the second Intifada from 2000 to 2004 or 5, and they kind of got it now from October 7th. If the Palestinian people committed to some peaceful thing, they had like a leader who was legitimately committed to it, especially they had a unified Gaza Strip and West Bank, and they were calling on some unified thing, then Israel would have a really hard time to say no to that. Like when I said before that Israel had made peace with Egypt, Israel... At that point, it was kind of seen as an impossibility that Israel could make peace with any country. The reason why Israel was made to make peace with Egypt is there was a new leader in Egypt. I forget his first name. His last name is Sadat. Anwar Sadat? Something. Sadat. And what he basically said was he told Israel, like, I want to make a formal peace agreement with you. And I think Israel said, fuck off, we're not doing that. The Yom Kippur War happened, which was a big surprise attack from all the surrounding Arab states. Scary for a couple days. And then that's when the U.S. in 73 finally Big Dick joined. It was like, we're going to replace literally every single thing you have on day 2 or 3 because we don't want you guys to start nuking everybody. But after that, Sadat, in a massive overture, the invitation might even be given on fucking CNN. I don't remember, but in a massive overture, Sadat, the Egyptian leader, and prior to Sadat, there was a guy called Nasser. Egypt was like seen as kind of the leader of like this new pan-Arab world where they were trying to make this giant country. That's why they wanted to kick the Jews out. Nasser had been replaced by Sadat. Sadat, the new Egyptian leader, flew to Israel and went to the Israeli Knesset, their Congress, and he gave a speech in the Israeli Knesset to bring like the Israelis to the table. And when you have like pressure like that coming from the Arab side, there's just no way that on the Jewish side you can't. Even your domestic population would be like, well, this is fucked.
100%.
Yeah. But the issue is that like Israel had, or you can argue for Egypt had a state and they had something to gain. Israel was able to give them back the entire Sinai Peninsula, which they also wiped their settlements out of as well. They took all the Jewish people out of the Sinai, although I think there was only like 5,000 people. But yeah, Egypt got the Sinai back and then they had peace with each other and it was fine. But it's hard if there's like a strong, like the guy that was always representing all the Palestinian people up to 2002 was a guy called Yasser Arafat, and Arafat was a military leader, and that's all he could have ever been. He just never had the mind to be like a political leader.
He wasn't a politician.
No, yeah. So he was always happy to see the fight as well, and he lived for the fight basically. I think, yeah.
So Egypt is still chill to this day with Israel, then?
Correct. Even when. And there's a big thing because a lot of the more Zionist Jews will tell you like, well, you can never make peace with Arabs. They'll always lie. But there was a huge concern. I think it was in 2011 when the Muslim Brotherhood took over in Egypt because they're kind of seen as kind of like sort of terroristic elements, Islamists, I think. They're the new president, I think, of Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood guy, I think literally wrote a letter to the Prime Minister of Israel. I don't know if it was Netanyahu in 2011, basically saying that like we intend to honor our peace agreement with you, which was a little surprising to people. So yeah, they respected it.
Okay.
But I'm not asking Palestinians to.
The big issue for Palestinian leadership though is that like it's very, very scary for Palestinian leadership to put a deal on the table saying these are our terms that we'll agree to, because no Palestinian leader has ever in the history of all of Palestinian agreements or whatever, has ever put down a solid thing on the table. Well, the thing is you just don't want to put something down and be seen as like backstabbing your people. So the big thing is that like there's this concept of like the right of return, and the Palestinians, there's like I think 6 or 7 million Palestinians that are refugees that are outside of Israel and the Palestinian territories. And what a lot of Palestinians will say in like leadership roles is if we have an agreement, a peace agreement, it has to involve the right of return of every Palestinian refugee. So if that happens, and they say they should go back to Israel proper, well, now Jews are a minority. So that's like always one of the huge hanging points. And there's never been a Palestinian leader that has ever said, this is the number that we'd be willing to accept. That number is always open-ended.
Got it. Because they want to do the right of return or whatever.
Correct, or at least they don't want to take it off the table. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Ignore their grievances or to ignore the pain that's I'm saying that on their end there needs to be a leadership and like a movement and a way of thinking about the conflict that actually helps them, because right now their current leaders are not doing that.
Okay. I think it's frustrating because I don't think you and I disagree on the fear or like the reason why Israel might have to maintain some sort of ethnic majority. I think the problem is that I don't see how it ever moves forward. Like it's funny because I'm like, damn, can anything change your mind? The answer is really no. It's exactly what I thought the first time I ever heard of this. Is like, it's just uber fucked, and so many extreme measures have to be taken that don't exist now, and I don't know how you manufacture those measures. I mean, I at the very least, first of all, I very much appreciate you taking this time, and I like that at the very least we can come to the prescription of like, hey, people in America today need to be holding politicians accountable and saying, like, demanding certain conditional aids, and actionable things to punish Israel for the worst things they're doing. But yeah, it just becomes this like super frustrating conversation for me because I can look at something bad and people are like, you don't understand why they're doing it. It's like, no, I do. I just don't know if like that's the only option, and if the only option only has to come from like a movement or like some greater project within the oppressed people. Like, I don't know. It just seems like this unfair sort of like, well, but that's not gonna happen. Therefore, and then everything keeps happening the way it is. I don't know.
I mean, at the end of the day, like we, like as Westerners, it's almost like what maybe you and some activists do as well. Is like, ironically, don't fall victim to like a progressive imperial mindset that exists as well. I think a lot of Westerners seem to overestimate the amount of power that they have over developments in other countries around the world. Like we can do some things. We can pressure the Israeli government, and we should do, and we should pressure them a lot more than we do. But at the end of the day, like we can't change the conflict from just ourselves, right? Changes need to happen everywhere. Not just even Israelis and Palestinians. Qatar would need to change what they're talking about, because Al Jazeera is a very important player in the narrative of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Like Jordan and Egypt would have to be involved in any kind of peace process that involves Palestinians. Lebanon is important. Syria is important. So there are limits. Like we, as Westerners, like we can mitigate harm, or we can push Israelis into a more humanist, into a more liberal position, and that would probably also involve like maybe befriending left-wing Israelis, because they are probably like the most lonely group in the world right now. Not to mention Palestinian Israelis, you know, them too, right? Like, there are things that people can do, but it's like you said, I don't know. Like, I just don't have any faith in like the current like activist movement, because I don't think they're really, whatever they're doing, it's not a movement that sees a problem and wants to fix it. I just don't see that in them. I see maybe like a social movement. I see like, for some people, it's a fucking fashion trend, like the white guys wearing keffiyehs to this day in like Western capital cities for whatever reason. Like, but yeah, I don't know. A lot needs to change everywhere, I guess. But I guess that's politics.
Do you think it's on the West for them to come in and like help figure out Israel-Palestine, or do you think Israel-Palestine should just kind of be left on their own to like figure it out themselves?
No, it has to be a strong U.S. leader. I think that because historically that's just kind of how it's worked
always
out.
Like worked since World War II.
Am I making this up for Sadat invites Israel speech? Didn't this happen on U.S. media, or am I making this up? I thought that he gave the invitation on like CNN or something, or I don't even know if CNN was. They were back in the 70s. I don't know how old this is.
Did his people like think he was being a fucking cuck in common day terms?
Some people would argue, yeah, he was assassinated.
Oh, Jesus.
In 81, yeah.
But the agreement held strong.
Yeah, it did. However, there was a guy called Rabin, who oh my god, I forgot all that. Was Rabin? It was in 95 when he was assassinated. Also, I think he was the one. Did Rabin do the Oslo Accords? But he was assassinated too. So it's always like
you do something for it, but then you get killed. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yep. Really bad on the Rabin thing, by the way. Before Rabin was assassinated, a lot of the, I think it was the Likud party back then, they were so mad at Rabin for signing the Oslo Accords that the far-right people were doing these demonstrations or protests. Fuck, I'm not going to be able to find it, but Netanyahu was part of these, and I remember in one of these he was carrying like a black casket for Rabin because he was so mad that they signed that. Yeah, and then he gets assassinated, I think the same year. Fuck, I'm not going to be able to find this. It's old footage. But
so they assassinated this guy because he did a peace deal, or I would assume there's other reasons, but
for Rabin,
one of them.
Rabin 100%. Sadat, I've heard different things that maybe necessarily it wasn't because of the Camp David Accords or whatever, but but probably, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. There was a, who was this? I think it was Hafez Assad at one point. I don't remember who was speaking to him. It couldn't have been Arafat. There was somebody asked him about like signing something with Israel, or are you ever going to have like talks with Israel? And I think he made there was a statement or a quote or something. It was like, the second I do this, there'll be like a knife in my back or something, you know? But yeah. Not good.
It's interesting, even though those people got assassinated, the agreements kept on continuing.
The Egypt peace deal did. The Oslo Accords, people see
Done.
them now as like a failure because it was the Oslo Accords were supposed to be transitional. Like you had Oslo 1, Oslo 2, and it was supposed to transition the West Bank and the Gaza Strip into like a formal Palestinian state, but it never came to fruition. So we're just like trapped in the Oslo Accords, basically.
Do you think we're gonna get a deal or anything in the next few years over this?
No.
Or are we just gonna sit in a fucking? Okay, yeah, we're just gonna sit around and.
No, because
So what's happening
on
with
the
Gaza
first
then?
on
Like,
the
what's-
first big
yeah, what's the
ones
plan?
for Egypt, the Carter was seen as being largely responsible for, I believe, facilitating those talks. Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter?
Yeah, it was seen as a really big push from the U.S. president for that. And then for the Oslo Accords, wait, my YouTube screen just died. Wait, did it? Oh, okay. For the Oslo Accords, well, they signed the Oslo Accords, and then for as close as the closest the Palestinians and Israel have ever been to peace was at the end of Bill Clinton's term, and it was because Bill Clinton was putting in a monumental effort to make peace work as well. So that's why I said before it probably takes some U.S. leader to come in and facilitate it. But
Got it. What was the Clinton thing where Hillary was pissed off at him, and then she like, fuck, I read something. Hillary was mad at Clinton over, I think, the blowjob shit, and then she was ignoring him for like months or maybe a year or whatever. And then there was
she
like a
picked
genocide
up the
going
phone
on.
or something. I called him. Fuck,
Yeah.
what was that for?
Serbia?
Was it? I don't remember the timelines on the
Saying
Monica Lewinsky
Serbia,
stuff.
yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
He immediately went in. God, Bill Clinton, he just sounds like the fucking goat. Balanced the budget, handled Israel-Palestine. Didn't get any fucking crazy wars, did he?
No, I'm pretty sure most people see the intervention in Serbia as a really great. I think most people see, probably not the lefties or whatever, but I think most people see that as a really good example of like powerful, positive like NATO intervention. Because I think they even got a UN Security Council resolution to go in for that as well. I think.
Black casket.
No,
Is that the
wait.
clip?
They had a UN resolution. They didn't get a UN Security Council one for this. They got the UN Security Council resolution for Bosnia and Herzegovina in '95, but not for this one. Okay. But yeah, I'm pretty sure most people see the majority of Clinton's presidency as being pretty successful. And then, yeah, you had Bush, which was just a fucking disaster. And then you had...
Bush Jr., right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bush Sr.
Wait, why didn't Bush Sr. win re-election? He got kicked out after one term. I don't even know why.
I don't know.
And Bush Sr. was the, would have been the Gulf War, right? Was it 91?
He was like the China fucking guru.
No, I'm so sorry. Wait. Yes?
Bush Sr. He was the 41st president. After him would have been Clinton, right? Yeah, Clinton.
He promised no new taxes and then did taxes. Okay.
Shrimple
ass. Shrimple ass.